Welcome to 100 Days of Stardew Valley the Movie, Bingo Edition. Guest starring Gus, Haley, Journal Daddy, Junimo, starring Aubrey and Bingo, and introducing Ginger and Ale. Throughout this challenge, we will be playing an entire run of Stardew Valley up to perfection, but with a little twist, as we will be attempting to reach bingo as we go. We'll start out the challenge with an official bingo card, and we'll be resetting the goals on this card every 100 days. So how long will it take us to reach perfection, and how many goals and bingos can we achieve along the way? Let's find out. It was Stardew Valley's 7-year anniversary. I missed playing Stardew, had watched several 100-day challenges, and my favorite number is 7. So I took that as a sign that I should try out a 100-day challenge for myself. I compiled a list of the usual completionist goals and was shocked to see just how many there were. Since there were so many available goals and I haven't played Stardew Valley in a few years, I decided the best way to choose which ones to pursue would be to add them all to a bingo card and see where the game takes me. I did throw myself a bone by adding in a couple more easily obtainable tasks, like having a flower dance partner or finding the giant Junimo plushie. Let's be honest, I'm going to snag this cutie even if it's not beneficial for bingo completion. After placing the community center completion goal on the center square and randomizing the remaining goals, my resulting bingo card looked like this. Now that we have a general idea of the goals we want to achieve, can I hit Stardew Valley bingo in 100 days? On day 1, I picked up my 15 parsnip seeds from Lewis and went to check my daily luck. The spirits were not happy, so I assumed I'd have a low yield from forageables and dumpster diving. I cleared a bit of my farm, collected enough wood to make a chest, then headed into town to start meeting villagers. I gave Leah, then Haley, the first gifts of many, bought 2 of each of the spring crops I'd need, plus some extra potatoes, found 3 clay at a dig spot, caught Sebastian just as he was leaving his room, and managed to meet everyone but Marnie, who had rudely locked her door a few hours prior to me getting there. I planted and watered all but 7 of my parsnip seeds before heading to sleep for the night. First thing on day 2, I checked the telly. Tomorrow there'd be rain, and the spirits were happy. I got the letter from Willie in the mail asking me to come to the beach, but before I did that, I needed to water my crops and plant my remaining parsnip seeds. On my way to meet Willie, I dropped down to do a little spring onion farming and introduced myself to Marnie so that my initial quest would be completed once I made it to the beach. I made it down to the pier and received the bamboo pole. I immediately went to try out, but was taunted by an unreachable bubble spot. These fish think they're so funny. I did manage to perfect the initial reel and caught myself a gold star sunfish. Not bad for a self-proclaimed fishing dunce. I fished a bit more before making my way onto the beach to try some clay farming. I headed into the forest to find Leah to give her a gift and came across a dandelion on the way, which was actually the gift I was going to give her. Perfect. Gifting the dandelion to Leah also finished up the How to Win Friends quest, and I was rewarded with 100 gold. Thanks, Journal Daddy. I headed back to town to gift Haley her second daffodil of the week, giving all these ladies flowers so that I can not be a wallflower at the dance. My flower picking paid off as I received foraging level 1 overnight. It was a rainy day 3 with mildly perturbed spirit. I checked my mail to find that Pierre was taunting me with his wares. Believe me, Pierre, if I had 2K, I would go get your stinking backpack upgrade. That letter reminded me that I had 24 clay to sell, so I loaded up my pockets and headed into town. Once in town, I stopped by the museum for a quick cutscene with Gunther, donating my first artifact and earning 250 gold for my trouble. Thanks again, Journal Daddy. I tried my hand again at some clay farming and managed to get 16 more pieces before getting distracted by an actual dig spot. I then went fishing for about 5 seconds before heading up to sell Robin my claymations. I was rolling in the money, so I took a stroll over to the local saloon, but instead of buying anything, I ran around and talked to everyone to help me improve friendship levels. I caught a couple fish at the river. While I am bad at fishing, I did find a way to be a little less bad, and that is by switching to a controller. So I literally have my controller sitting right next to my keyboard so I don't forget to switch to it. After fishing to exhaustion, I headed to bed with dreams of backpack running through my head. Oh, and I got fishing level 1. Yay! It's day 4 and the spirits are in good humor. I watered my crops, then checked all the trash cans in town before donating another artifact to the museum. I then headed to the beach for, you guessed it, more clay farming. After messing up the pattern a bit, I left the beach with another 29 clay that I sold to Robin for 580 gold. I eyed the backpack upgrade at Pierre's longingly before purchasing 11 more parsnip seeds and 9 more potatoes. Remembering the spring onion commercial, I headed down to find a literal trove of these beauties. Now, if only I can remember to use them more often for energy. Day 5 is a neutral spirit day, so I do my usual routine. Wait, Marnie found a dog on my farm? Yes, of course, I'll keep him. There was a farmer had a dog and Bingo was his name, oh. I also had a letter from Jojo, then harvested my very first parsnip. That means 100 more gold from Journal Daddy. I harvested the rest of the parsnips, then watered my crops before heading out to intercept Shane on his way to work. And yes, it is day 5, so if I had waited on my farm just a little bit longer, I would have gotten the community center cutscene. But I will let you in on a little secret. I am not very good at this game.
You how you are, you just have to say that you're fine.
So I caught Shane for our morning chat and he was a ray of sunshine as usual. Then went down to the beach for more clay farming. I did pretty good with the pattern today and made it to 54 clay before deciding to call it for the day. I sold my clay to Robin for 1,080 gold, then made a beeline over to Pierre's to snag the fruit of all my clay labor. It was beautiful. I got a few more parsnip seeds to start working on the quality crop bundle, before remembering that the traveling merchant was in the forest because it was Friday. Yep, nothing good. And a good thing too, because I'd spent most of my money at Pierre's. I made my friendship rounds at the saloon because it was Friday and everyone and their mom was hanging out there tonight. Okay, so it was only Sebastian and his mom, if we're being literal, but you know what I mean. Day 6 and the spirits were feeling neutral. I started the day by caring for my crops and pup, and managed to get a golden parsnip. 1 down, 4 to go for the quality bundle. Grabbing some of my extra parsnips, I headed into town. Once again, too early for the community center activation. I'll figure it out eventually, I promise. After my usual trash run, I sell Pierre my extra parsnips and buy a few replacement seeds. Then go into chat with Caroline. She has a 2-heart event that teaches you how to make tea saplings, and I would love to get that recipe sooner rather than later. Then it's back to the beach and clay, clay, clay. After selling my clay to Robin for 900 Gs, I made a big loop around the town talking to villagers, ending up in the southern forest to pick myself up some more spring onions. Ooh, this little guy is really close to that sewage pipe. I make my way back to my farm to plant parsnips and clear a bit more of the land with the help of some big spring onion energy. Oh, and I received level 1 farming and level 2 foraging. Day 7 and it's another neutral day, but I did learn the recipe for stir fry, so that's a win in my book. Robin let me know about home upgrades and I realized I needed to start thinking about that. If not for the kitchen, then for the potential marriage in my future. I harvested and watered my crops before planting down a scarecrow to protect my precious harvest. I'd planted at least 2 of each crop needed for the community center, but I still didn't want to take any chances. And wouldn't you know, placing the scarecrow awarded me more cheddar from Journal Daddy. I'm finally ready for the day of fishing, but do you notice the time? That's right, only took until day 7 to finally activate the cutscene for the community center. I check out the gibberish on the floor, then go about my day. Yesterday's clay money made me think it wise to buy more parsnips for quality crop bundle progress. Then I went in to check on Caroline. We were on 1 heart already. Only a matter of time before we hit the big 2, and then those tea saplings are mine. I checked Lewis's trash right behind his back, but didn't talk to him as I had completely forgotten it was his birthday. Rude, I know, but I will make it up to him. I then went to check the traveling merchant. She had some deluxe speed grow that caught my eye, but I decided on the more immediate need of a birthday gift for Lewis in the form of a coconut. Now, should I have saved the coconut for Haley's birthday? Maybe? But I gave it to Lewis since I am also trying to obtain max hearts with everyone in the village. I'm sure I'll find something else for Haley over the next few days. I've mentioned before that I'm not the greatest at fishing, but 2 of my potential bingo spots require that I catch every single type of fish, and this includes the legend. A legendary fish that you need level 10 to catch, and it only appears in the mountain lake in the spring during the rain. I went to bed that night dreaming of bobbly bobbles and managed to reach level 2 in the fishing skill. Just another manic Monday on day 8 and the spirits were annoyed at me again. Come on guys, I just want to go to the mines, please. I did get the invitation to see the wizard and a letter from the Hat Mouse, but sorry Mousy, the first hat on my list is the one I'll be snagging from the Egg Festival. I took care of my crops, then made my way over to drink the wizard's Wonder Brew so that I could better understand my Junimo pals, before heading home to grab the first load to take over to the community center. I completed the spring foraging bundle for my 30 spring seed, and added a parsnip and potato for the spring crops bundle before finding a bubble spot on the river where I fished well into the evening. Back at home, I planted a few more spring seeds before calling it a night, gaining level 3 fishing while I slept. Day 9 saw the spirits angry yet again, but at least the pollen outside made the day look nice. I tended to my ever-growing crop field, planting all but 5 of my spring seeds, before turning in some fish at the community center. Today is the day Willie caught me going through the trash. I swear I thought he was far enough and facing away. So to make it up to him, I ran over to the mountain lake to do some fishing. Though to be honest, I was actually on my way to the mines. Good luck day be damned. But this pool of bubbles caught my attention. I figured I would go to the mines once the bubbles stopped, but they were there from before 4 when I arrived until almost 10. I didn't even know bubbles could be active for 6 straight hours. I decided I should still poke my feet into the mines, so I went in to get my rusty sword and check out the first few floors. More annoyed spirits on day 10, so I started contemplating all my life decisions until I was interrupted by Clint at my door, who handed over the blueprints I needed to craft a furnace. I hadn't had any good luck days to warrant a full trip to the mines yet, so I focused on taking care of my crops. Up to 3 gold turnips, yay! I added 2 more to the lake fish bundle at the community center before finding another bubble pool in the forest. This one didn't last quite as long as yesterday's, but I still managed a good fish haul, plus the added benefit of working on my fishing skill. I remembered to give Vincent some cookies I found in the trash for his birthday. I wiped them off, I swear. So now he is officially my best friend in town. Not too heart shabby for day 10 if I do say so myself. I found some more spring onions, then just kind of wandered around for a bit. I guess I was looking for forageable? Once back home, I did a bit of inventory management. Oh, and I reached level 2 farming, level 4 fishing, and level 1 mining. Heck yeah. The spirits were finally happy on day 11, so that meant I should make a trip to the mines. I picked up the quest to find Robin's missing axe and did my usual crop maintenance. I was up to 4 out of 5 gold parsnips. It was getting late in the afternoon, so I dropped Robin off her axe, then made my way to the mines, where I placed down a chest for storage between dives. After reaching level 5 in the mines, I had enough copper to craft a furnace, which I placed next to my chest by the elevator. It was rather late when I finally reached level 10 of the mines, so I donned my new boots and made my way home for the night. It turns out I left the mines a tad too late because I fell asleep just feet away from my home and was charged 125 for this blunder. On Friday the 12th, the spirits were happy again. Trying to lure me back to the mines, I see. My pop sent me 500 gold in the mail, and Mayor Lewis reminded me that the Egg Festival was tomorrow. I had accrued a good chunk of change, so to be sure to save enough to purchase at least 20 strawberries from Pierre at the festival. If you're wondering why 20, completing the Springs Crops bundle in the community center awards you 20 speed grow, which can be used on your strawberries the night of the 13th to allow for 3 strawberry harvests instead of 2. I'd planted at least 1 of each of the crops needed on day 1, just to be sure I would be able to complete this bundle on the night of the festival. With a little pre-planning, I would be able to have my strawberry situation situated tomorrow. Since it was a good luck day, I took the geodes I had acquired at the mines over to Clint for processing, and donated most of the minerals I obtained to the museum. I was then rewarded with cauliflower seeds that I would plant right away, and melon seeds that would be stored away until summer. Since it was Friday, I went to check the traveling cart. She had a large egg that I decided to pick up to help with the animal bundles. I realized that I could now enter Leah's house, so I headed in for our first hard event. I made it to level 14 in the mines before I was swarmed by bugs and forced to flee. It was after midnight and I did not want a repeat of yesterday. I needed all my money for strawberries tomorrow. I made it to bed with 10 minutes to spare and managed to hit level 1 combat while I slept. The day of the Egg Festival would be neutral, but that was fine because my day would be occupied with preparing my farm for strawberries. I laid out a pretty funky pre-watered pattern. Wishful thinking on my part that I would be getting sprinklers anytime soon, I know. Once at the festival, I purchased 20 strawberry seeds from Pierre. I debated getting more, but thought I ought to save some money for the traveling merchant tomorrow. I did my socialization rounds before absolutely destroying everyone in the egg hunt. Okay, so I only got 11, but I found Jess hiding in a bush, so she has to count for at least 5 eggs, right? I still won the hat, and before the night was over, I made my way to the community center. Oh, right, a Linus event. I guess this is what happens when you work so much on relationship. I told him it's a shame for food to be wasted, cause it is. And besides, who am I to criticize someone for looking through the trash? I actually felt a little bad that I was probably snagging all the good stuff every morning before he has a chance to check. Gus showed up to flex his compassion muscles, and I began to wonder why he's not the mayor instead of Lewis. He creates jobs for the community, gives everyone a place to hang out on rainy nights, and cutscenes like this show he really cares about the other villagers instead of having a sneaky and possibly exploitative relationship with one of them. I'm looking at you, Lewis. Anyhow, let me know in the comments if you'd sign my petition to replace Lewis with Gus for mayor. Just before 11 p.m., I was able to snag my 20 speed grow, returning home to plant and fertilize all 20 strawberry seeds before heading to bed. On day 14, the spirits were annoyed, so after cleaning up my farm a bit, I headed south to check the traveling cart, but came across Jas and Vincent near the sewer instead. After showing the children how brave I am, I checked the traveling merchant's wares. The duck egg initially caught my eye, but then I saw she had a few more coconuts. Today was Haley's birthday, and she loves coconuts, so I really couldn't pass up the opportunity. Needless to say, Haley loved the gift, and we were now sitting at 4 hearts. Then I creeped outside Caroline's bedroom door for a chat, but she was going to bed, and I didn't have enough hearts with her or Pierre to get inside. I'll have to keep working towards those tea saplings another day. Since it was still fairly early, I headed up to the mines to grab some of the items I'd left there before heading home for bed. I had a fairy visitor in the night and reached level 3 on both farming and foraging. It was the start of week 3 and the spirits were in good humor, so I decided I should take another trip to the mines today. But first, I harvest all my spring forageable crops to turn into more spring seeds before watering my precious strawberries. Once at the mines, I made it to floor 29 before being thwarted by a monster floor. I probably should have continued until I hit floor 30, but I wasn't really feeling up to the task of all that slaying. My name's not Buffy, you know. Instead, I headed home and did a bit of inventory management before calling it a night. I have a ton of fish in my chest, but I'm waiting until I hit level 5 fishing to sell them, so they'll be worth a little bit more. I reached mining level 2 for my efforts that day. The next morning, I awoke to very happy spirits with a rainy day on the horizon, and while I honestly didn't want to head back into the mines, I realized I should if I wanted to make any progress on my bingo goals. I took care of my crops before heading into Pierre's to have a chat with his wife. My plans were temporarily interrupted by Morris waving his little coupons around, but once he finally left, I was able to give Caroline the daffodil I'd plucked outside for her. This brought us to 2 hearts, and I was finally able to enter her sunroom for a spot of tea. I would be sent the recipe for tea saplings on the next day. Oh yeah. Next, I stopped in to muscle open a jar for Haley and gave her one of the daffodils I found this morning, officially reaching 5 hearts with Haley and earning the achievement A New Friend. I pondered my heart situation for a while. Haley would certainly be the better option for this run. I had been able to get a loved gift of coconut from the traveling merchant for her on her birthday, and wouldn't have to spend any extra cash to keep her swimming in daffodils. I might even be able to marry her in summer at this rate. I couldn't think too long about my romantic musings though, because it was time to hit the mines once again. On level 32, I ran into the stone golem form of nightmares. Drums in the deep. But I managed to reach level 40 before calling it for the night. I woke up the next morning to the pitter-patter of angry spirits on my roof. Or was that just the rain? Caroline sent me the recipe to craft tea saplings, so I made 100 wild seeds, one of the materials necessary to craft these lucrative saplings. My crops were happily being watered by the rain, so I spent some time fishing before heading back over to Haley's just in time for another heart event. I hadn't been finding many bubble spots over the last few days, so I decided to fork up the cash to buy the fiberglass rod from Willie. This rod upgrade would allow me to add bait, increasing the bite rate and thereby speeding up the fishing level progress somewhat. Reaching a high level of fishing in spring was actually crucial for a few of the bingo goals, as you'll need to be the equivalent of level 10 fishing with levels and buffs combined in order to catch one particular fish, the legend, who can only be caught in the spring during the rain. Failure to catch the legend means that I would not be able to catch all fish or find all 7 star drops by the end of the 100 days.
So much fear and doubt. So small a thing.
I also crafted a few tea saplings that I tossed into the shipping container for that lovely profit. I spent the rest of the evening fishing by the ocean rock, managing to catch a few eels for the night fish bundle. I reached fishing level 5 overnight and selected the fisher profession. I'd be selling the fish thinking up a certain chest in the coming days. Oh, and I made 4.5k for my tea saplings. Nice. Day 18 was another neutral day, but it was also Pam's birthday. So after tending to my crops, I grabbed the silver parsnip I'd been saving for her and headed over for my bonus friendship points. Pam was now in 2nd place on my friendship meter, sitting at a respectable 3 hearts. I wanted to start gathering hardwood soon, so I dropped off my axe with Clint for an upgrade. Still needing 1 more gold parsnip for the community center bundle, I bought a few more seeds from Pierre before heading back to the mines to get some iron. I made it to level 48 before it got too late, and I decided to get out of there while the getting's good. I loaded up my inventory with items I wanted to bring back to the farm that night and reached level 2 combat. Day 19 was the day of the cauliflower, as Pam sent me the cheese collie recipe and Jody asked me to drop a cauliflower bye to her. I planted more parsnips, this time with fertilizer, since I needed to make sure I got the final gold quality harvest. I'd noticed that the grass was getting pretty close to my precious strawberries, so I grabbed some supplies and headed over to Robin to commission a silo be built. I also checked the traveling cart, considered buying a walleye, but decided I needed to fish every fish, so grabbing this from the merchant would not be productive. I made my rounds at the bar before spending the rest of the evening fishing by the ocean rock and clearing up some more debris on my farm, which allowed me to hit level 3 mining. On day 20, my axe upgrade was ready, and the spirits were very happy. It was also the day of my first strawberry harvest, and luckily I hadn't missed watering any on previous days. We'll see if I can keep that up. I swung by the mines to pick up enough copper bars to trade Clint my completed axe for a pickaxe upgrade, and got to work clearing more trees and debris from our farm with my new copper axe. Later that night, I swung by the saloon to chat with the locals, purchased a few more salads and a beer to give to Shane. It was his birthday today, after all. Once back home, I chopped a bit more wood before calling it a night, reaching both farming and forging level 4. Day 21 saw the spirits annoyed with me, but my dad sent me some money and Robin had finished the silo in the night. Shane had also sent me the recipe for pepper poppers. Neat. I cleared some more of my farm, adding hay to the silo, before grabbing the materials needed to purchase a coop. It was still spring, but I needed to get a move on with my animals if I wanted to complete all of the community center bundles in time. I headed over to check the cart while I still had money burning a hole in my pocket, but she had nothing of interest to me, so I made my way up to Robin's to commission another farm building. I have a feeling I will be keeping her very busy over the next few weeks. I tooled around town, talking to people for a bit before noticing some bubbles just out of the reach of the pier. Luckily, the bubbles were reachable from the beach, so I fished there for the rest of the evening. No level up that night, but I did sell 5 more tea saplings for more than enough gold to upgrade another tool to copper. The spirits were very happy on day 22, and I was very happy to see Demetrius at my door. I chose bats to help out with the fruit needed for the community center, and Robin was hard at work working on the coop. I wonder if Demetrius actually stopped by to see Robin. Anyhow, I picked up my pickaxe from Clint, but instead of heading to the mines, I spent most of the day fishing. Later that night, I chopped wood and made some more tea saplings to ship off for a lovely payday the next morning. That night, I reached level 6 fishing. On day 23, both the Telly and Mayor Lewis reminded me it was the flower dance tomorrow, but I wasn't worried because I was already well past 4 hearts with Haley. I stopped by to see Gunther and made a few donations to the museum, then ran around town chatting with people until I came across Leah in the forest and fished awkwardly next to her as she sketched. It was finally the day of the flower dance, and though the spirits were perturbed, I was not, because I knew today was the day I would get to cross off my very first bingo spot. While I waited for the dance to begin, I harvested my second batch of strawberries, along with a few remaining cauliflower. Once at the festival, I bought the rare crow from Pierre, along with a few daffodils, just to be sure I could keep the hearts with Haley a-flowing. And now for the moment of truth. Will she or won't she? Well, we were at 6 hearts, so I don't think she would refuse. But quick, Mayor Lewis, start up the music before she changes her mind, or before I do. The next morning, the spirits were annoyed. Maybe they didn't like how I danced. Journal Daddy gave me another 100 gold for having the coop built, and I reached 7 hearts with Haley for being her partner at the dance yesterday. I needed to start thinking about house expansion so that Haley and I could be married, so I headed up to Robin to commission her work. An expanded house meant the added bonus of a kitchen that just might allow me to superficially increase my fishing skill through food buffs. I completed the blacksmith's bundle in the community center later that day. It would be nice to have the minecarts repaired. Completing the blacksmith's bundle opened up the vault, which would eventually allow me to travel to the desert. Then I fished outside Leah's house, waiting for her to return home so that I could give her another salad. Perturbed spirits returned on day 26, and there would be no rain tomorrow. It was also Pierre's birthday, so I stopped by his shop to give him a daffodil. I contemplated purchasing the final backpack upgrade, but decided my money would be better spent on apple and pomegranate saplings I would need for the community center. My plan was to plant them on day 1 of summer so that they would be ready to produce fruit come fall. With my coop now finished, I headed over to Marnie to purchase a chicken, who I named Little, before stopping by Leah's for her 4-heart cutscene. A bit later on, I checked the traveling cart. She had a few miner's treats that entreated me, so I bought one. Not sure if this was a good idea, but it looked tasty. I spent more time that night fishing outside Leah's house before heading to the watering hole for my weekly chats with the locals. I do so love when they congregate in the same spot. Makes raising relationships that much easier. Robin was still working on my house, so I'm not sure why Demetrius was busy. I guess he was getting busy with them dance moves. Speaking of dance moves, I got to do my happy dance again because I reached level 7 fishing that night. Neutral spirits on day 27, but I was more concerned about the weather. Come on, rain tomorrow, and it's going to be clear and sunny all day. I watered my strawberries one final time before heading into the mines to see if I could get enough copper bars to do a watering can upgrade before Clint closed that day. Spoiler alert, I could not. But I finally remembered to pick up the tea leaves from Caroline's sunroom, trading her some seeds for the trouble. Why is my inventory always so full? After that, I did my rounds at the saloon, gifting Emily an amethyst for her birthday and bumping her all the way up to 4 hearts. I debated buying the usual customers a round of beers, but decided against it, mostly because my bag was too full. Guess I should have gotten that backpack upgrade after all. Ironically, Shane decided it was his turn to offer up a cold one as I triggered his 2-heart event on my way home. Oof. -1 speed from being tipsy is no bueno. Luckily, it wears off quickly. That night, I reached level 5 foraging, selecting the gatherer profession. It's the final day of spring, and I woke up to a wonderfully large home. I honestly think this is the fastest I've ever gotten the first house upgrade. I harvested my final strawberries of the season, stopped by Pierre's for my last chance at spring seeds, then headed to the community center to drop off items for a few bundles and bide my time until noon. What happens at noon, you might ask? Well, only access to one of the best items in the game. You can receive this adorable Junimo plushie on the last day of any season by shaking the bush behind the playground at exactly 12 o'clock. I remembered to go grab another tea leaf, and on my way found Abigail and Caroline hiding in Caroline's room. These ladies are so relatable. Next, I headed over to Clint to upgrade my axe to steel, before heading to the beach to trigger Haley's 6 heart event for a few more bonus friendship points. Still at 7 hearts, but we must be so close to 8. On my way back to the farm, I remembered to check the traveling cart, and she had a rabbit's foot that I decided I shouldn't pass up. I spent the rest of that evening doing inventory management, redecorating my house a bit, and placing my new friend in a comfy spot where he can soak up the sun during the day. How did I never notice there's only one window in this place? Aw, what a perfect little family. And thanks to the final strawberry harvest, I hit farming level 5 overnight. Tiller is the profession I chose. The first of summer was a good humor day, but the first thing I needed to do was stop by Pierre's for some summer seed that I headed back home to plant before doing a bit of decorating over near the coop and then fishing into the night. On day 30, I spent most of the morning watering my crop before heading over to my girl Haley's house for our daily chat. I ended up walking into a heart event with Emily instead. A shocking dream indeed. What wasn't a dream was then hitting 8 hearts with Haley, meaning I could finally ask her to be my partner. I say finally, but it's only summer too? I'm not sure how, but Haley beat me over to Marnie's ranch, so we caused a bit of mischief there. Okay, who could resist that face? I was a bit low on funds, so I made a few more tea saplings to sell to Pierre in order to purchase the bouquet for Haley, along with a few more blueberry seeds, before heading over to the newly opened ice cream stand to pick up one for Demetrius. Just as I was leaving the area, Haley showed up, freshly showered, so I decided it would be a good time to pop the question. She seemed pretty excited. The night was still young, so I took a trip into the mine since today was a good luck day, but I only made it to floor 48 before deciding to call it. There was an earthquake during the night, meaning that I would have access to a new area, or maybe that was just the sound of the mailman stuffing my mailbox with all the letters today. Jeez. Thanks, Pierre, but I'm a step ahead of you. I also got the mayor's quest to find his shorts. I knew where they were. In fact, the whole town probably knew where they were. Honestly though, if Gus were mayor, I think he'd go find his shorts himself, not try to involve an innocent third party with a quasi-unsanitary task. So I went to take out my frustrations on the monsters in the mine. After a hard-fought few floors, I made it to floor 50, halfway to the first of hopefully many star drops. All the monster slaying paid off because I hit combat level 3 overnight. After my daily farm chores on day 32, I decided to make my way over to the secret woods with my newly upgraded axe. I would need another house upgrade costing 150 hardwood if I wanted to have children by the end of this 100 days. I know, I'm not even married yet, so I'm putting the cart before the horse a bit. I decided to go have a little chat with our friend Marnie and could see that both she and Shane had questionable items strewn about their room. No, seriously, a book open on the floor like that. I went looking for Jas to try to erase what she witnessed with Shane by giving her trash cookies I'd found before her birthday. Then finished up a bundle in the crafts room before heading back into the mines to try to make at least a little progress, which I did not. I really need a better weapon, and that was probably going to become the catchphrase of this run. After tending to my farm work on day 33, I visited the traveling merchant, only to find that she had a red cabbage seed. Oh my gosh, what?
The woman was too stunned to speak.
After I got my chin off the floor, I snagged the seed and sang a little happy song, and I ran back to place the cabbage right next to a watchful scarecrow. Guard this with your life. After the excitement of the cabbage seed, I decided to relax by doing some ocean fishing until it was time to head to the saloon to do my usual chatting rounds. Aren't Fridays at Gus's grand? On my way home that night, I placed a sap tapper because I really needed to get a move on with that for the community center. On day 34, I had some weed damage, but my cabbage was okay, so no harm, no foul. And the rest of the day, I really just did some farm cleanup until I stopped by to see Gus. He was super welcoming, as usual. Total mayoral material. Day 35 brought more farm tending and another trip to the traveling merchant. I think my traveling merchant is reading my mind because she brought me a crocus today. only the snow yam for winter to go. Later, I had a little heart-to-heart with Willie, when honestly I had just stopped by to sell him my latest catch, so that I'd have the funds to have the barn constructed, before taking a trip to the mines for some plant fiber and copper ore. I remember the spa was now open, so I took a little dip before cleaning up some more of the farm. This extra cleanup session got me to level 6 foraging. It was Gus's birthday on day 36, and the spirits were happy. So happy that they made sure I had one of Gus's loved gifts waiting for me in the cave. So after tending to my farm, I headed over to the saloon to gift the birthday orange to my favorite barkeep, before having Clint break open a few geodes I'd been collecting. I managed to donate quite a few minerals and artifacts to the museum that day. Next, I decided to bite the bullet and purchase a claymore from Marlin to speed up monster slaying in the mines a touch. I tried out my new sword on a monster floor with some amorous slime, and made it to floor 60 before calling it a night, reaching level 4 mining. On day 37, the amazing Gus sent me the recipe for a salmon dinner, and I was so excited to finish bundles that I loaded up my pockets and headed to the community center before I even started caring for my crops. I had hot pepper for the summer crops and a large brown egg for the animal bundle in the pantry, a crocus for winter foraging, a blackberry for fall, and 10 hardwood for the construction bundle in the crafts room, a poppy for the chef, and 10 wheat for fodder on the bulletin board. And then I completed the adventurers and geologist bundle, finishing the boiler room. Not too shocking that this was my first fully completed room. To celebrate, I purchased the 5,000 gold bundle in the vault. Later that afternoon, I gave my lovely girlfriend a flower, hoping to reach 10 hearts by the next rainy day. Then I went fishing to add more donations to the community center. I think I may be addicted to donating. And now only a few missing submissions in the fish tank. Once back at home, I finally took care of my neglected crop and snagged a cloth from the recycling machine, another dono for my CC addiction. The wonderful Junimos did the cutest dance to activate the minecarts that night, and I reached fishing level 8. Day 38, I neglected my morning crop duties yet again, instead heading into the secret woods for some hardwood and fishing. Then I bought a brown cow named How Now, and although I gave her quartz, Marnie would still not let me into her room to retrieve the infamous shorts. I caught Maru just as she was leaving her house and gave her a birthday strawberry. Gold quality, thank you very much. Today was an annoyed spirit day, so what happened while fishing in the mountain lake shocked the heck out of me. I got my first ancient seed in a treasure chest, oh my gosh. To calm down from all that excitement, I took a quick dip in the spa, then went home to care for my crops with my renewed energy. The luau was today, so I made sure Bingo knew I'd miss him while I was gone, before grabbing the gold star halibut I'd been saving for today. What's with the cherries, you might ask? They were for the artisan bundle at the community center. Once at the luau, I did my social rounds before making the soup a little fishy, though it seemed like the governor was into that kind of thing. On day 40, the Batcave had 2 more oranges laying in wait for my pal Gus and the community center respectively. I decided to water my crops this morning, but my main goal of the day was turning the ancient seed in since the museum had not been available yesterday because of the luau. After a few more turn-ins, I completed the construction bundle at the community center, then checked the traveling cart, but decided not to buy anything. Later that night, I cleared out some more trees on the farm to make 17 tea saplings. On the first rainy day of summer, Caroline sent me the recipe for parsnip soup. What a stellar mom move. I picked a pack of completed melons, 3 were gold star needed for the quality bundle. Then I headed over to give Alex my best egg for his birthday. Since it was a rainy day, I went to check on my heart situation with Haley, but we were sitting at 9 hearts. Not quite high enough for the pendant. I wasn't sure what to do for the evening, so I checked the hat mouse to see if there was anything of interest, but nothing caught my eye. So I went to turn in a red snapper, completing the ocean fish bundle. On day 42, I found out it would be raining again tomorrow, so I mentally prepared for how I could reach 10 hearts with Haley that next day. Luckily, gift giving would reset for the week today, so I'd be able to gift her twice. There was a good variety of fruit in the Batcave, and I had harvested even more items needed for bundles, so I made my way over to the community center to deposit the red cabbage, complete the summer crops bundle, and made another dent in the artisan bundle. Then headed over to Pierre's to, another cutscene. This one with the singular intent of making sure I knew I would not be crossing Prairie King off my bingo sheet. You and me both, Abigail. I donated more artifacts to the museum to pick up my pumpkin seeds for fall, before gifting Haley a sunflower. Still at 9 hearts, but there's still hope if I gift her something good again tomorrow. Then I headed to the mines, where I made it to level 68 before calling it for the night. As I was drifting off to sleep, I realized I had forgotten to check the cart. But I did manage to reach level 6 in farming. Halfway through summer, and if this season was anything like spring, then this would be my second and final chance to snag the marriage pendant until fall. I spent most of the morning cleaning up land around my farm, then grabbed a daffodil I'd set aside for Haley with the hopes of reaching 10 hearts. The flower did the trick, and I earned the achievement Best Friends. Heck yeah. I headed down to the beach to purchase the mermaid's pendant from the old mariner. It would cost me 5,000 gold that I had been saving for the vault bundles, but I was able to sell off a few items to Pierre to snag the crystallarium from the 25,000 gold bundle. I would be placing a jade into the crystallarium in hopes of trading them in for staircases at the desert trader. I headed back to Haley's, but instead of being able to propose, we ended up in a tiny red room that I offered to help decorate. That was not the right answer, but she accepted my proposal even after my blunder, even offering to do all the prep work for the ceremony. Later that night, I hung out in the secret woods fishing and harvesting hardwood, and hit level 7 foraging. Day 44 saw another storm on the horizon. Guess I didn't need to power through that final heart level with Haley after all. And once again, I got a piece of late advice, this time from Lewis. You'd think he'd already know Haley and I were engaged. I'm pretty sure Gus would have known if he was mayor. I caught Marnie on her way to exercise and gave her quartz, officially reaching the heart level needed to enter her room. Now for the unsavory task of entering her room. But first, I stopped by Clint's to upgrade my watering can, as tomorrow the rain would do my watering for me. I made sure the coast was clear, then barged into her room to snag the unmentionables. I hadn't yet decided if I would return them or find some other creative use for them. Back on the farm, I saw that How Now had traveled pretty far from the barn. Maybe I should actually complete the fence. Oh, I see, you don't get your fence pieces back. Well, that's a problem for future me. I took a soak in the spa for a little energy so that I could clear out another section of overgrowth before heading to bed. On day 45, more of my melons were ready to harvest, but I decided to hold off because it was a bad luck day, and I hadn't used fertilizer on these particular crops. I needed 2 more gold quality melons for the community center, so I'd rather wait until the next good luck day to harvest. I spent most of the day fishing by the ocean rock before helping out one of my favorite villagers to make sure their books were in order. As it was Sam's birthday, I bought a pizza from the saloon and headed over to his place. Sam was not home, so I waited. And waited. He finally showed up close to 9 o'clock. A bit of a waste of an evening, but we were now at 4 hearts. After that, I cleared up more of the trees that had fully grown on my farm before heading to bed for the last night as a single lady. The wedding ceremony was first thing the next morning, and although the forecast called for rain, apparently no clouds could come to rain on our parade. I harvested some melons and now had the 5 needed for the quality crop bundle, just waiting on corn now. I decided to take a trip over to the community center to check on bundle progress and donated a catfish, omelet, and purchased the final 2 bundles in the vault. Then it was time to purchase a milk pail from Marnie, as How Now was now a large cow. I spent some time in the mines and managed to hit level 70 before heading home to clear out more of my farm. I hope Haley doesn't mind me getting home so late. But look at the cutie Junimos fixing the bus. Oh, and I reached level 4 combat. On day 47, I picked the final 2 corn needed for the quality bundle, along with a satisfying blueberry harvest. Then I checked the traveling cart, but didn't buy anything. Instead, I spent a little cash upgrading my hoe to copper, before heading to the desert for the first time. I didn't have much of a plan for my trip here aside from gifting Sandy a flower, though I did end up purchasing honey for the community center. After returning home, I made a trip to the community center to complete the artisan bundle with my newly acquired honey, as well as the quality crops bundle with my gold melons and corn, and the exotic foraging bundle with a coconut, cactus fruit, and oak resin. It was Demetrius's birthday, so I surprised him with a gold strawberry, then immediately discovered why I've had such a hard time finding grapes this season. Next, I headed to the mines where I reached floor 75. On day 48, Demetrius sent me a nautilus shell in the mail. Thank you, thank you. I decided to spend part of the day making progress in the mines and reached level 80 before tooling around town for a bit, eventually making it back to the farm to clear out more trees and rocks. It hadn't felt like I'd done much today, but I hit level 7 farming and level 5 mining. I chose geologist. Haley didn't want to get up on the morning of day 49, and if that isn't a mood, then I don't know what is. Luckily, the spirits were in better humor than Haley, so after tending to my crops, I checked the traveling cart. I eyed a few items there, but ultimately didn't make a purchase, instead picking up my hoe from Clint's in exchange for a steel pickaxe upgrade. It was summer, so the beach was the place to be. While at the beach, I fished near the ocean rock until my energy waned and I used my last piece of bait. When I got back to my farm, it was still fairly early, so I grabbed a snack and cleaned up additional trees. That night, I reached fishing level 9. It's day 50, so we're halfway through the challenge. So far, we've completed 3 bingo spots, have 5 villagers at 5 hearts, reached level 5 on all skills except combat, have made about 140,000 gold, and completed around 70% of the community center. I had a few more items to drop off for the bulletin board bundles today, before having an awkward conversation with Demetrius. You know I'm married, right? Next, I ordered the big coop upgrade from Robin, then blasted my way in to see the dwarf. Today was the dwarf's birthday, so I brought him a topaz, but I'd only found 2 scrolls, so my thoughtful gift had no impact on our relationship. I made a quick trip to the desert for coconuts to gift Haley, and placed down a musical note to make sure I knew when anyone was coming or going from the farm. I decided I should place some pathing around my crops to better protect them from the spreading grass, and worked on the animal enclosure a little bit more. Still a work in progress, but it's getting there. On day 51, Robin was hard at work upgrading my coop. I decided to make a side trip for tea leaves, before turning in the last item needed to earn the treasure trove achievement of receiving Rare Crow number 8. Then I picked up my pickaxe from Clint, and dropped off my hoe for a steel upgrade. Gotta get a move on with these tool upgrades. I spent some time that afternoon in the mines finding a few lovely mushroom floors and making it to level 95 before heading home for the night. On Wednesday, I plopped down my new Rare Crow, then dropped off some more items for the bulletin board bundles, finishing the field research bundle for a recycling machine. I purchased a duck named Darkwing while trying to pretend I didn't know why Lewis was actually visiting Marnie. Since it was Willie's birthday, I headed down to his shop to gift him a quartz and pick up some trout soup and bait that I used to catch a sturgeon at the mountain lake, allowing me to finish the lake fish bundle later that night. On day 53, I received the quest to bring George a pepper for his knee. So I packed a pepper into my pack along with 5 gold bars needed to upgrade my watering can with Clint. Then I spent some time hoeing up the mines in search of the final dwarf scroll that I found on floor 95. I was a little excited to finally be able to buy from the dwarf, so I immediately turned in the scroll to receive the Dwarfish Translation Guide. And with my newly acquired verbal prowess, I bought Rare Crow number 6 from the dwarf before hopping back into the mines and earning the star drop waiting for me on floor 100. That night, I hit level 5 combat and chose the fighter profession. My first bottle of wine was ready on day 54, but before I took it to the community center, I went over to check the traveling merchant, ultimately not making a purchase. With the wine now deposited, I completed the Enchanter's bundle, leaving only the apples, maki roll, truffles, and a duck feather for the bulletin board completion. I needed fiber for tea saplings and wanted to make more progress in the mines, so I took a dive, and what do you know, I managed to snag the Squire's helmet on floor 106. You know I'm wearing this to fight monsters. I reached floor 110 that evening, acquiring some fancy new boots and hitting level 6 mining. On day 55, I realized that How Now was a lonely cow and I needed truffles before winter. So I asked Robin to upgrade the barn so I could start purchasing the additional animals needed for this run. Then I donned my helmet and took to the mines, reaching floor 115. Once back on the farm, I did some crop and inventory maintenance before crafting a good quantity of tea saplings to make back some of the money spent on the barn upgrade. What a lovely sound. On the final day of summer, Haley watered the crops for me. This would have been a laughably fruitless task, except some of my crops were corn and would survive the changing of the seasons. So, thanks babe. I made some maki rolls for the community center before checking in with our merchant on wheels. I decided to purchase a rare seed this time as it was the last chance before fall, and I bought a large goat milk to give myself some breathing room on how quickly I'd need to purchase animals. I also picked up an eggplant, but I'm not really sure why. But I did turn it into the community center along with the goat's milk and maki roll. We're getting so close on all of these bundles. Then I headed to the mines where I reached the bottom, earning the skull key and access to the desert mines. I had yet to find a prismatic shard, so going to the skull cavern without a decent weapon was going to be dicey. But that was a problem for future me, because tonight was the wonderful season-ending festival on the beach. Alongside my wife, I watched the jellies dancing mystically under the moonlight and reflected on the season gone by. On the first day of fall, I spent all of my money on seeds from Pierre that I planted back on the farm. It was dark by the time I finished watering, so I foraged for the forageables needed to complete the fall bundle and was awarded 30 fall seeds. Now I only need the snow yam in order to complete the crafts room. On rainy day 58, Robin had finished up my barn upgrade, only to get immediately to work on the special orders board for town. I hope she's getting hazard pay for hefting that big metal hammer out in the storm. I remembered today was Penny's birthday, so I grabbed an emerald I'd been saving and headed off in search of her. Luckily, since it was raining, she was pretty easy to find hanging out at home. That gift jumped Penny up to the ever-growing list of villagers in the 5 Hearts Club. That afternoon, I did some river fishing for the walleye and tiger trout needed to complete the river fish and night fishing bundles. Only the sandfish remaining for the fish tank. I couldn't pass up the bubble spot calling to me as I headed to the mines, so I fished for a bit before heading to the mines for the rest of the evening in search of plant fiber. That night, I hit foraging level 8. Darkwing laid her first duck egg on day 59, or so I thought. Sneaky Duck had hidden her first egg behind the mayo machine. I'd also collected the 3 apples needed for the bulletin board. It looked like a community center run was in store again today. So I headed over to the desert and caught the sandfish needed on my very first cast. While in the desert, I opened the skull cavern with my recently acquired key and poked my head in, only to be immediately greeted by a serpent, and me still wielding the obsidian edge. I was kind of hoping to luck into a prismatic shard while in the cavern, but decided to give up after only a few levels and headed home. I completed the final bundle at the fish tank, courtesy of the sandfish, dropped off the apples to complete the fodder bundle, and finished the animal bundle with the duck egg. Oh, and can anyone shine some light on what happened next? This flash of light felt like I successfully blocked some kind of Junimo jolt. I mean, the Junimos definitely know magic. They showed off some more magic by removing the massive boulder by the mines that night, and I reached level 7 mining. On day 60, Haley watered my crops again, saving me so much time that morning. While it was initially a relationship of convenience for the challenge, I've got to admit that Haley has definitely grown on me. Mr. Key sent a letter that reminded me how much everyone monitors my whereabouts, but at least he's willing to pay me for my next skull cavern dive. I spent most of the day clearing trees on my farm, then did a magic trick where I teleported across the lake. Maybe the Junimos have been teaching me some of their magic. Willie was kind enough to give me his spare copper pan, so now I'd be able to shimmy search the water in a fun new way, and I spent the rest of the night gathering ore and fiber in the lower levels of the mine. Haley made me an omelet for breakfast on day 61. So sweet. I'd completely forgotten that I'd put an egg in the incubator, so I was a little surprised when it hatched. I named Little's chick Biddle because I was caught off guard and couldn't come up with anything else. I placed a duck egg in the incubator since it was apparently now free to use. Hopefully I don't forget about this one too. Next, I earned Rare Crow number 7 from the museum before selecting Emily's rock rejuvenation request from the special orders board. I think Haley would appreciate me helping out her sister. It was Elliot's birthday, but I wasn't good enough friends to go into his house, so I waited on the beach to gift him a pomegranate before checking in on the traveling merchant. I probably should have picked up the seafoam pudding, but I decided not to make a purchase. As I was heading to the saloon to give Emily the requested gems, Elliot offered to buy me some wine. I love that you can propose a toast to your doom, but does that mean his or mine? Well, I went for the classic option of to our friendship because we would certainly be friends if he kept the wine flowing. Then I gave Emily the requested gems, completing the quest, but hoping she didn't plan on feeding that amethyst to Abigail. Gus came to visit me on day 62 to give me a mini jukebox. He's such a great guy. You can't help but smile around him. I received a sewing machine from Emily for helping her out yesterday, and Pamp sent me a battery in the mail. I brought some geodes over to Clint and donated what I could from that haul to the museum. Then I went fishing in a bubble spot, finding my greatest fish nemesis to date. It was an epic battle, but I managed to reel in that super cucumber, tossing gold onto the beach to further assert my dominance, and also my pack was full. I really need that backpack upgrade. That night, I placed down some torches so that monsters wouldn't spot. Oh wait, this isn't Minecraft, but it definitely looks better with more illumination. Overnight, I reached farming level 8. Haley gave me the spouse star drop on day 63. I think this means we're at 12.5 hearts. Darkwing was holding out on me for a feather, so I put her egg in the mayo machine to let her know I meant business. I sold some produce to Pierre before heading over to check the traveling cart. She had one of the rare crows I needed to complete my collection, and while I could wait until the ice festival to snatch it up, I decided I should get it now while it was at a touch of a discount. Only 3 more rare crows to go before my collection's complete. I spent most of the evening in the mines until I face tanked one too many times and had to head home for the evening. But I did reach level 6 combat. On day 64, Haley once again proved she was a good marriage choice as she offered to winterize the house. I know it doesn't really mean anything in-game, but it's a thought that counts. Linus asked me to find his basket, and I racked my brain to remember where it was. It'd been a while since the last time I had this request. My first cranberry harvest was ready, so I sold them to Pierre for a nice payday that I used towards the purchase of the final barn upgrade I'd need to buy pigs. On my way home, I spotted Linus's missing basket beside the tunnel. I headed down to grab the basket and realized I'd never actually entered the tunnel. So I went in and it was so dark I almost missed the lockbox on the wall. Thank goodness for my little glow ring. I returned the berry basket to Linus before heading into the secret woods for some late night hardwood farming. I misjudged how long it would take me to wade through all the grass on my farm to get home and ended up passing out right at my doorstep. I hope Haley is able to carry me inside. She may not have carried me in last night, but Haley did take pity on my exhausted state by watering the crops again. Wow, guess you don't need sprinklers if you marry early on. Linus had sent me the recipe for sashimi, and I discovered Dr. Harvey had charged me almost 1,000 gold for my medical care. Ugh. Mayor Lewis also reminded me of the Stardew Fair being held next week. I needed to make sure I had a good Grange display for a leg up to purchase the Star Drop and one of the rare crows needed for progress on my deluxe scarecrow bingo spot. Later that morning, I picked up the biome balance request from Demetrius and asked Clint to upgrade my pickaxe to gold. I ran around collecting blackberries and chatting with villagers for the rest of the evening, and worked on a path to the southern exit of the farm so that I was less likely to have a repeat of last night. On day 66, I found out that I had reached max hearts with bingo, and was quite upset that I hadn't thought to add that to my completion list. Now, with the barn fully upgraded, it was even more sad seeing how now all alone and lonely. I'd been struggling a bit to keep up with funding for all the projects I was working on, but purchasing a pig was fast approaching the top of that list. Since I didn't need to water my crops, I went back to the tunnel to place a battery in the lockbox. This gave me the task of bringing a rainbow shell to the train platform, which tasked me with placing 10 beets in Lewis's fridge. Okay, Mr. Key. I don't think I want to ask what message you're trying to send with that one. I had to clear up some confusion between Demetrius and Robin surrounding tomatoes. Then I commissioned a second silo for my farm, as I need to start stocking up for winter. I fished for the rest of the evening until I finished up the biome balance request. On the morning of the 67th day, I earned the Homesteader achievement and reached max hearts with Haley. This was shaping up to be a wonderful day. I had a new duck hatchling named McDuck, and Darkwing had dropped the feather I needed for the community center. The yams were ready that morning, along with a batch of grapes that I could use to make summer seeds. On my way into town, I caught Haley catching Jas and Vincent catching Penny up on their schoolbook woes, and then tried to take care of my own financial woes by selling my latest harvest to Pierre. How much do pigs cost again? I was still a bit short. So I turned in the duck feather at the community center to feel accomplished. That seed maker is going to come in handy, now only missing the truffle for the bulletin board. I also turned in a yam for fall crops, meaning that I would have the greenhouse once my first pumpkin is ready. I stopped by Jody's to give her some birthday cake and earned the networking achievement, then gathered up some more goods to sell to Pierre. I sold just enough seeds to reach 16k before racing over to Marnie's to purchase my new Piggly Wiggly. I also gave her a bunch of amaranth she'd requested for her cows. I remembered my pickaxe was done, but didn't reach the shop in time. You said you're open to 4 and it's just now 4? Seriously, Clint. I spent the rest of that night foraging and planting trees awkwardly along the northern path. I discovered winter roots would produce winter seeds in the seed machine, so I generated a few winter seed packs to be ready for when my greenhouse was available in a few days. Marnie stopped by in the rain on day 68. Guess she was really desperate to get that cave carrot. She said to stop by her place someday between 9 and 5, but I think we all know that means only on the 5th Friday of the second week. Lucky for me that when I stopped into Marnie's with the cave carrot, it was a Friday in the second week, so she was home, and very anxious to get that treat. She practically sprinted around that counter. The pumpkin I had fertilized with Speed Grow was ready this morning, so I turned it into the community center, officially unlocking the greenhouse. Only the snow yam and truffle are left to donate before the community center is complete. Today I remembered to grab my gold pickaxe from Clint before closing time, and headed to the mines where I completed the Insect Monster Slayer goal. Wow, I'm not even close on any of the other goals, but at least my dreams of community center completion are one step closer with the mystical dance of the greenhouse Junimo. Today was another cranberry harvest day, and I was able to purchase the final backpack upgrade with my profits. When I got back home, Haley had made plans for a cakewalk and requested I bring a chocolate cake into town on the next sunny day. I'd never married Haley before this run, and so I was looking forward to seeing this new to me event. It was Abigail's birthday, and I had a gold star pufferfish with her name on it. Then later stumbled upon her hanging out in the cemetery. On day 70, it was raining, so no cakewalk today, but my first jar of fairy rose honey was ready. I think I'll be saving that beauty for the Grange display. As I was heading down to check the traveling cart, I found Shane out at the cliff's edge and made sure he made it safely in to see the dock. At Pierre's, I sold just enough produce to be able to afford the gold axe upgrade from Clint. Upgrading all my tools to iridium was a daunting task, but I'd just keep chipping away at it as much as I could given all my competing priorities. Since I'd yet to find a prismatic shard, I thought acquiring the burglar's ring would be a good route towards increasing my chances. So I took to the mines to farm dust sprites. I'd need to kill 500 of these little boogers. That night, I reached farming level 9. Leah dropped by a sculpture on day 71, and Jody came by to see if I wanted to come over for dinner tonight. Okay. Are they making a queue outside my door this morning? Shane? You too? Jeez. Is there no one else? Once the train of villagers had finished passing through my farm, I grabbed the chocolate cake I'd been saving for today and headed into town to meet Haley for the cakewalk. I don't want to spoil the event for anyone who hasn't seen it, but let's just say it made me warm up to Haley's character even more than when she let her hair down and helped me out on the farm. Robin also gets some bonus points from me at Mayor Lewis's expense with this event. It was Sandy's birthday today, so I headed out to the desert to gift her a sweet pea, and bought the 10 beet seeds needed for Mr. Key's quest. Then headed into the Skull Cavern, where I overshot floor 25 due to an overzealous shaft, and almost died to the serpent laying in wait for me as I fell. Once back home, I grabbed the largemouth bass Jody had requested, and plopped it right down onto their living room floor. Who's hungry? After dinner, I barged in on Sam and Sebastian's band rehearsal. Sam must have worked up an appetite playing guitar because he decided to grab a post-dinner snack of raw egg. Thanks, but I'll pass. Emily was back from her day trip for Sandy's birthday, so I spied on her rock ceremony for a while. Haley had definitely been working herself too hard organizing that cakewalk, as she'd fallen asleep right there on the floor. I took to the mines to farm more dust sprites, but noped out after nearly dying to a rather unfriendly ghost. That night, I went through the chest in which I'd been setting aside my best items to try to figure out what I wanted to bring to the fair for my Grange display, and reached level 8 mining. The day of the Stardew Valley Fair had arrived, and lucky for me, Mr. Key had sent me 10,000 gold for making it to floor 25 of Skull Cavern. Once at the fair, I set up my Grange display. I'd brought Lewis's shorts, but ultimately decided not to put them on display today. After I ran around chatting with everyone and tried one of Gus's amazing burgers, I had Lewis start judging the displays, only to discover that I had won first prize with a rating of 111? Then I placed a few bets for green on the wheel since it's supposedly weighted towards green. But I think my wheel is broken. So I did something I never thought I would do in a run, and that is earn most of the tokens needed through the fishing game in order to buy a star drop for 2,000 tokens, the rare crow for 800 tokens, and all the remaining items at the stall with the exception of the light green rug. I just didn't have it in me to fish up another 400 tokens. Okay, so maybe I did have it in me. I mean, come on, that rug matches my Junimo plushie. So pretty. The next morning, Evelyn brought me a garden pot. After taking care of chores on the farm, I picked up my axe from Clint and had him break a few geodes I'd been saving up. Then I hung out in the mines farming plant fiber and hoping for the prismatic shard drop that wasn't meant to be. On day 74, Gunther dropped by to give me the rusty key. So after harvesting some cranberries in the rain, I stopped in to gift Marnie a farmer's lunch for her birthday, on my way to visit Krobus in the sewer for the very first time. He had a star drop that I wanted, but 20,000 gold was a bit out of my current price range. So I settled for a jam session in the rain with Abigail, before requesting the final coop upgrade I'd need for this run. Then it was back to the mines, on the hunt for that elusive prismatic shard. I awoke on Friday to find there was an explosion during the night. Turns out it was a rather conveniently crashed meteorite that gave me some much needed iridium ore. I checked in on the traveling cart, but didn't need any of her wares. So I checked the special orders board and decided to pick up the community center cleanup request, then headed to the mines for, you guessed it, a prismatic shard hunt. That was fruitless. On day 76, my coop upgrade was complete, and my winter seeds had finished growing in the greenhouse, making it so I could fully complete the crafts room. Only the truffle left before the community center is complete. Next, I had Clint open more geodes to find items for museum donations, then back to Clint's for a hoe upgrade. And then back to the mines. Come on, Prismatic Shard, I need you. After no luck again in the mines, I got to work on the community cleanup request, fishing trash out of the pond on my farm well into the night. These Junimo dance scenes never get old, do they? And that night, I reached foraging level 9. Wiggly had grown into a big piggly on day 77, so it was only a matter of time until we had that truffle. I spent most of the day fishing up trash for the community cleanup request, then gifted Robin a quartz for her birthday, on my way to place the pond trash into the garbage bin for Linus's request. Kind of fun that he paid me to clean up my own land. The beets had finished growing, so I placed them in Lewis's fridge while he was standing right in front of it. He must not use the milk often because there was a note on it tasking me to feed the sand dragon. The pig hadn't found a truffle today, so I cleared up some more grass to give him a better shot at it tomorrow. Before heading to bed, I placed some hops into an empty keg to brew the pale ale that Pam had requested. On day 78, Linus sent me a crafting recipe for fiber seeds. I had no idea this recipe existed, but boy am I glad that it does. Growing my own fiber will help dramatically with tea sapling production. I checked on my animals, but Wiggly hadn't found a truffle yet, so I cleared even more area around the barn to give him space to search. My initial 2 silos were already full, so I commissioned a 3rd from Robin in order to store the remaining grass on my farm before winter. Right next to the shrine seems good. Then I picked up my golden hoe from Clint before heading home to plant some fiber seeds. And dun-da-dun, picked up the truffle Wiggly found. You know this is going straight to the community center, is what I thought to myself while watching the playback. But apparently past me decided that a trip to the desert was actually in order. Okay. Ah, I see. Past me was actually pretty smart to head to the desert while the bus was still available to feed the dragon their solar essence. Clever girl. Now I need to check the lumber by the door, and then I think this quest chain will be complete. But first, the truffle. I've officially completed the community center on Fall 22, Year 1. Nice! Once back home, I checked the logs for Mr. Key's quest and found the club card needed to access the casino in the desert, then headed to the quarry for a little explosive diamond mining to round out the night. Haley fed the animals on day 79, and I didn't have the heart to tell her we had auto feeders, so I just gave her a kiss and went about my day. I got the achievement Popular for finishing up the bulletin board last night, and then spent the morning caring for my crops, before heading into town to see one of the most joyful scenes in the game, right behind this little gem of joy. See ya, Morris. Or not. I thought nothing could top the day so far, and then this happened. What? I am trash. Yep. This is my hat for the rest of the run. Sorry, not sorry. It was apparently my lucky day, so I took a little trip to the casino. Wait, is his name Mr.? Like Mr. Key? Anyways, I played the slots until I had enough key coins to purchase the objective of my visit. Rare Crow number 3 was mine, and I had only the Spirit's Eve Rare Crow left to acquire before I'd be able to craft the deluxe Scarecrow needed for one of my bingo spots. That night, Pam's Pale Ale was ready, and I reached combat level 7 from just observing the Pierre punch earlier in the day. No, but really, I dropped by the mines a bit that evening. The next morning, Haley made me pancakes. How did she know those were my favorite? I received a cryptic letter from Willie and a few more recipes from some of the villagers. Wait, did I say some? I meant most. From most of the villagers. Oh, and Pierre's store was now open 7 days a week. Wiggly had already found a truffle that morning, and I had plans to turn it into truffle oil via an oil maker in order to make a rain totem. You see, one of my bingo spots is completion of the missing bundle, and in order to get access to the bundle, lightning has to strike the now empty Joja Mart the night before a rainy day. There weren't many days left in fall, and it doesn't rain in winter, so I'd need to use a totem in order to assure I'd have access to the missing bundle within these 100 days. Getting the items needed for the bundle, now that was another problem altogether. So I set the truffle a-brewin' and headed into town to gift George a golden leek for his birthday, before accepting the special order to bring Gus 2 dozen eggs for a very, very large omelet. Anything to help out my pal Gus. In a momentary lapse of judgment, I gave Lewis back his shorts. I know, what a waste. But I did get a minor reward, allowing me to say something I haven't said in quite some time. Thanks for the cheddar, Journal Daddy. My truffle oil was done when I returned home that night, and this is when I made my second mistake of the day. You'll see what I mean. Crafting the rain totem earned me the artisan achievement, and I activated the totem immediately like the impatient little farmer that I am. That night, a bolt blasted down from the heavens to smite the remnants of the once looming market. And here it comes. Yep, natural rain tomorrow. A bit of a waste of a rain totem, but fear not, I'll make an even greater blunder a little further into the run. The villagers decide to fill up my recipe book a bit more today, and my friend Gus sent me a delicious looking vegetable medley. My third silo was complete, so I scythed up some of the remaining grass around the farm. Please ignore the partial fencing. Then I did something I should have done weeks ago. I started planting the mahogany seeds I'd been collecting. In my defense, these were not around the last time I'd played Stardew, so it took me a while to realize I should plant them for a renewable source of hardwood. The sweet gem berry was fully grown today, so I plucked it up and gave it to old Master Cannoli in the secret woods in exchange for another star drop. I stopped by Marnie's to pick up a heater for the coop and purchase a, hey, where are you going? No. Alrighty then. No animals for me today. My immense displeasure at Marnie must have been showing because I scared the bejesus out of Leah on my way home. Later that night, I headed to the mines for more fiber farming as my planted fiber still had a few days before it'd be fully grown. The next day was a rainy fall Friday, and Emily sent me some wool. Maybe I could knit a scarf to ward off the coming winter chill. I checked the traveling cart and decided to purchase a sturgeon. I would need caviar for the missing bundle, so I put build upon on my ever-growing list of priorities. When I stopped into Marnie's today, she was actually working, so I purchased Billy the goat before heading over to Robin's to commission that pond. But first, she taught me how to craft the flute and drum blocks I heard I'd need later on for Ginger Island walnuts. Next, I poked my foot into the quarry mines for the first time. Excuse me, what is that? I managed to kill the floating skulls eventually, but barely escaped with my life. I definitely need a better weapon before coming back in here. The rest of the night, I took on levels of the regular mine that were more my speed, looking for plant fiber and just hoping for that elusive first prismatic shard of the run. On day 83, I headed back to Marnie's for the third day in a row, this time purchasing the white chicken I'd need for the all normal animals bingo spot. I had a bit of a theme going at this point, so I named this chicken Riddle. While wandering around waiting for the festival that night, I stumbled upon the wizard who let me know he'd sealed his ex-wife into the side of the mountain. I'd deal with fetching his ink another night because it was almost time for the Oh, okay. Let's do some stargazing first, I suppose. Once at the Spirits Eve festival, I purchased the rare crow from Pierre before making my way through the maze to find the golden pumpkin. Back at home, I plopped down the 8th and final rare crow needed before I'd earn the recipe for the deluxe scarecrow. Then packed my bags with everything I thought I'd need for a trip to Skull Cavern first thing tomorrow morning. The final day of fall was a good humor day, so just like that, I was off to the desert. Whoa, these warp totems are pretty trippy. I stopped by the trader for some spicy eel, espresso, and a load of staircases, even picking up some extra bombs for good measure. Then I steeled myself with a wonderful combination of eel and espresso and headed inside. By 9 a.m., I hit a spooky diner room on floor 20, then nearly died on floor 28, but I persisted onward, lower and lower, reaching floor 50 by 2 o'clock that afternoon. By floor 54, I had run out of ladders and things were looking dim. Would I be able to reach floor 100? Would I find enough iridium to fix Willie's boat? Could I luck into a prismatic shard? These were the questions I asked myself as I traversed one hard-fought floor after another. I crafted one final staircase with the rock I'd collected, my emergency stairs if you will. On floor 56, all hope seemed lost, until one fortuitous shaft dropped me 15 levels. I was less than 30 levels away from my goal. With my renewed resolve, I started blasting, finding another friendly shaft that dropped me 13 floors while on floor 73, and ultimately made it to floor 100. But wait, a red slime egg is nice and all, but where's all the fanfare? Looking it up later, I found that Mr. Key would not be waiting for me on floor 100 until I found his secret note, which would unlock until I got the magnifying glass in winter, tomorrow. I'm torn whether or not I can mark the reached floor 100 in the Skull Cavern spot off. Back at home, I found the deluxe rare crow recipe waiting for me in the mail, but I was missing the plant fiber needed to craft it. So instead, I did my final harvest of the season before heading to bed. Fall closed out with me reaching level 9 mining and level 10 farming, selecting artisan. It's the first of winter and we are in the final stretch. That morning, I followed some suspicious footprints through the snow and bumped into Shadow Guy, who gave me the magnifying glass that would allow me to find secret notes. I began to wonder if the shadow guy was my pal Krobus, so I went to visit him. But he didn't mention my morning encounter. Instead, he opened up a tunnel for me to find the dark talisman needed to access the wizard's X's Bastille. My fiber was done growing, so I harvested it so that I could craft the deluxe scarecrow to complete another bingo spot. Then crafted tea saplings with the remaining fiber. On day 86, Krobus sent me the recipe to craft a dark sign. Caroline gave me a parsnip, and Willie asked me to catch a squid. But before I attempted to catch the squid, I stopped in to see what was in Willie's back room. Willie's boat wasn't in the game the last time I played, so I may have looked up the materials needed on the wiki. I dropped off the hardwood, iridium bars, and battery packs needed to fix the boat. Heading back through town, I found out the reason Lewis doesn't want his relationship with Marnie to get out. Then purchased the star drop from Krobus to fill my mind with something other than the dysfunctional relationship between Lewis and Marnie. That night, Robin and Willie got to work repairing the boat. I wish I knew the name of the boat, but I couldn't find any information on the wiki, so let's name it. Let's see. It takes you to Ginger Island. Ginger's Island? I mean, wait. Wasn't Ginger one of the passengers stranded on Gilligan's Island? It can't be. Is this the SS Minnow? Was Stardew Valley populated by the descendants of the people who wrecked on Gilligan's Island? I'd need to head to the island tomorrow to search for more clues, but I've got a suspicion. The next morning, I packed up some supplies I'd need on the island and headed out. But first, I wanted to drop by a birthday gift for Linus and ask Robin to get started on a stable for the horse I'd need for one of my bingo spots. Robin must have been anxious to get started on the stable because she dashed out of the house ahead of me, nearly running poor Linus over. Don't worry, he was okay. When I reached Willie's shop, I considered purchasing the iridium rod, but decided to hop on the boat and hope that the maiden voyage of the newly repaired SS Minnow would go better than the previous launch. Look at us go. Watch out for that ship. Oh, sorry. Am I being a back boat driver? I was so excited to be on the island, so I ran about on the beach before noticing a small child watching me from the tree. He ran off, so I followed him to see if he knew what became of Ginger. He did not seem to. Then a flame led me north. Excuse me, do you know? Alrighty then. Guess I'll just do some exploring on my own. I found a parrot who wanted 10 of the walnuts I found to shoo away the turtle. Then another who wanted 20 walnuts that I didn't have. I'll have to wait to unlock the island hut, but I can still plant some crops while I'm here. It was getting late, so I warped home to make sure I was there in the morning for Haley. On a snowy day 88, Haley repaired fences around the farm. I actually didn't know a spouse could do that, but maybe she got a few tips from Robin while she was here working on the stable. Since the stable was in process, I decided I should get a move on with purchasing the other animals needed for that bingo spot. So I purchased a rabbit named Roger, then headed over to the saloon to drop off the 24 eggs Gus had requested, before catching a ride with Willie over to Ginger Island. Once there, I met a mystery woman. Journal Daddy told me her name was Birdie, but I'm not convinced. Could this actually be Ginger? I thought the strange voice from behind the door might be able to help, but I'd need to find 100 walnuts to actually talk to him. 19% there. Not bad, not good, but not bad. I cheesed my way past a few tiger slimes to reach another few walnuts, before playing a nightmare game of Simon Says that had me lost and confused inside a cave for 5 in-game hours. These 3 walnuts better be worth it. While running in the dark, trying to remember the way home, I panicked and gave the first parrot I saw 10 of my precious walnuts that I should have been saving for my cabin. Luckily, this opened up the Parrot Express and I was transported to the dock lickety-split. Relieved that I wouldn't pass out lost on the island tonight, I even stopped to shimmy up some goodies on my way to board the boat back home. The next morning, Gus sent me a mini fridge, and my stable was finished, so I named my horse Winnie and took a spin around town on my loyal steed, before interrupting Willie's morning fishing for a trip back to the island. It was raining on Ginger Island, so I found the topaz bird on the northern island and somehow managed to power guess my way to 5 more walnuts. Then I tried going into Volcano. It was pretty scary, but I managed to reach level 5 around midnight, and there was a bird there who offered to take me to the exit for 5 walnuts. Geez, these parrots sure do know how to get me with the promise of an escape route. On day 90, I got to work expanding my strawberry crops in the greenhouse. Probably not the most lucrative crop to grow, but I love strawberries. Then I headed back to the mines to slay some monsters, specifically the dust sprites needed to unlock the burglar's ring. only to find out I still had a long way to go on that goal. So I headed back to the mines for more monster combat until the sleepy hours. Pierre stopped by on day 91 to say he'd be offering different seeds for me to purchase from him next year. Please ignore the seed maker next to the door, you see nothing. I finally remembered to check on my sturgeon pond this morning and he was asking for a diamond. So I obliged. We would now be able to have 3 sturgeon in the pond, dramatically increasing the chance for the fish eggs needed to make caviar. I found Bingo wandering around the southern exit, trying to remind me to check the traveling cart, but there was nothing there to purchase for the missing bundle. Next, I headed to Marnie's and did make a purchase of another basic farm animal, Baba the sheep, before heading into town to gift Caroline a freshly brewed green tea for her birthday, and then spent the evening back in the mines working on combat, monster slaying goals, and holding out hope for a prismatic shard drop. Late into the evening, I came across a special slime and felt a glimmer of hope for a shard drop, but he only had thermal boots on him. It was now the day of the Ice Festival, and quite possibly the day I made the worst blunder of the entire run. That morning, I sold 309 blackberries in the shipping bin. 309. If you don't know already, I'll tell you why this was such a blunder once I'm finished being disappointed with myself. So I headed down to the Ice Festival, blissfully unaware of the trauma I just caused, and took home first prize in the ice fishing competition. Sorry, Willie. That night, I made a pretty nice profit from foraging, but, well, I'm still not ready to talk about it. On day 93, Haley saw how much work I'd put into this challenge and asked that you like and subscribe if you're enjoying the video. I decided to head back to the mines again today because dust sprites, prismatic shards, yada yada yada. I hadn't even killed half the sprites I'd need to unlock the burglar's ring, so these mine trips were starting to feel futile. But if at first you don't succeed, at least you can have a blast trying. Later that night, I found a cryptic note to bring syrup to the secret woods, though I still hadn't realized the gargantuan error I'd made just the day before. It was not until the next morning, as I strolled into the secret woods, that the realization struck me. I had lost out on over 13,000 gold from the sale of my blackberries. So I did a little retail therapy to help ease the pain and bought milk. The white cow I needed to fully complete the all normal animals bingo spot. Next, I ran over to see Sebastian and gift him a frozen tear for his birthday, before fishing up some sturgeon to add to the pond. I realized the wizard's wife was still trapped in the mountain, so while I was in the area, I dropped by to investigate. There was a henchman blocking my way, but luckily I knew I could fish up the void mayo he desired from the water right next to him in order to retrieve the wizard's ink. I can now eventually build a Junimo hut on my farm, and the obelisk, and the gold clock. But the Junimo hut! My newly filled sturgeon pond had another request waiting for me on day 95, so I threw a grape into the preserves jar to make them their jelly. I was in the mood to take on requests this morning, so I picked up the Cave Patrol quest from the Special Orders board, but got sidetracked by a bubble spot right outside the entrance to the mine. After fishing, I got to work on clearing skeletons from the mines by resetting floors 70 to 79 well into the night. The fishing diversion did pay off because I reached level 10, selecting Pirate. Arrgh. Oh, and I hit level 8 combat. I'd only managed to kill 18 of the 50 skeletons needed the night before, but I had 3 days to finish this quest, and only 4 days to reach bingo in this challenge. Oh my gosh, where has the time gone? My pond had produced roe today, but even if I made caviar, I don't think I have time to collect the other items needed for the missing bundle. I knew I needed to get back to hunting skeletons, but fishing in the mines was calling to me instead. Really glad I answered that call because I managed to fish up my very first dino egg while trying to catch the extremely rare ice pip on floor 60. I spent the rest of the night slaying skeletons on the frigid floors, running home in time to place my new dino buddy in the vacant coop incubator. On day 97, I checked on my heart situation and was disappointed to find out that I was only at 7 hearts with my buddy Gus. To remedy this situation, I grabbed an orange and headed over to the saloon, only to find that the door would be locked for another hour. No wonder he'd been closed that morning. Gus had been preparing that ginormous omelet I'd supplied the eggs for. Needless to say, the omelet was a hit. And after gifting a few more townies, I had my 6th resident at 10 hearts, with Robin and Gus trailing close behind at 8. An added benefit of working on the Cave Patrol quest is that I completed the Skeleton Monster Slayer goal and was rewarded with a fancy new hat for Winnie. I found the skeleton motherlode as I continued questing in the mines that evening, and managed to kill the final skeleton needed for the quest as the sleepy hours arrived. Day 98 was a good humor day, and Roger had dropped a foot overnight. Lucky me. I'd completed my immediate tasks in the mines and thought a trip to Skull Cavern was in order, so I loaded up on bombs I'd need there. Before I departed, I had Clint open a few geodes, including a golden coconut that held a beautiful banana sapling inside. Then it was off to the desert, where I stocked up on staircases and other goods. I wasn't as decked out as my previous trip, but my goal today was just to find a prismatic shard. No need to traverse all the way to floor 100 to do that, is what I promised myself as I took some serious damage on the very first floor. And it turns out I was right. On floor 9, as I saw my life flash before my eyes, I also saw that radiant flash of prismatic goodness that let me know my trip was not in vain. Now I just had to make it out of the cavern with my loot intact. So I tucked tail and ran for it. Am I proud? Not particularly. But I know what will make me feel better about my choices. The Galaxy Sword was now mine. It had taken until day 98 to finally have a weapon I felt comfortable hefting about in the more dangerous dungeons. Was it too little too late? While in the desert, I stocked up on starfruit seeds, before heading back to the valley to do my social rounds at the saloon to round out the night. I received a few more recipes on day 99, and then crafted up a good batch of tea saplings with my freshly grown fiber. I had given up trying to earn 1 million gold in this 100 days, but I was hoping to hit at least half that by the end of tomorrow. I replanted more fiber, making sure to have a seasonal rare growth standing guard, before packing up seeds and other items I wanted to bring with me to Ginger Island. Next, I stopped by Pierre's to sell my tea saplings, and purchased one of each of the tree saplings he sold. I wasn't sure yet if I was going to plant them in the greenhouse or on the island, so I decided I would just take them with me and decide once I got there. Once on Ginger Island, I went to work planting the crops I'd brought with me, and did a quick scan of the beach in search of stray walnuts. Then I headed to the night market to do some shopping, and catch a show that really mermaid my night. We've reached day 100. Let me take you on a tour. You know what? A tour is overrated. To be honest, I am a bit embarrassed at the state of my farm, so I decided to plant trees in the greenhouse to show that I am working on it. And all of a sudden, it was somehow afternoon. I needed to get a move on if I had any hope of getting bingo. My best shot at reaching bingo today was retrieving the golden scythe from the quarry mines. While my initial venture into that mine had been, well, terrifying, I had hoped that the Galaxy Sword would see me through to the scythy end. The entrance of the quarry mines was quiet. Too quiet. In fact, most of the mine was quiet. Oh, there you all are. Well, here goes nothing. So I started slashing. Once at the end of the mine, they tried blocking my path to reach the scythe with all manner of stones, but I'm happy to report that I was victorious. We did it! We got bingo on day 100! I went to give Grim a high five for our accomplishment and got the boot instead. Anyways, with the weight of achieving bingo finally lifted off my shoulders, I made one final round at the saloon, even remembering to give Emily the amethyst that Clint had requested I give her instead of him giving it to her, and now she thinks it was a gift from me. Though to be honest, it does make more sense that her sister-in-law give her present than a guy who's barely spoken to her. So let's just move on to something that no one saw coming. If you had told me that I would be spending the final hours of my 100 days fishing, I would have laughed. Not just chuckled, but really laughed. Though, you know, it is rather peaceful down here. And I managed to catch the 3 fish unique to this location and event, a task that is vital if I wanted to achieve perfection. Though I managed to hit the original bingo goal I set out for, I want more. And based on comments, it seems some of you feel the same way. Thanks to Doesn't Matter, I know that perfection won't be possible to reach in 200 days. So instead of shooting for perfection, I think it would be fun to revamp some goals and try for another bingo. I removed the goals we already achieved and threw a few new ones into the mix. Though I did keep the Skull Cavern goal because even though I technically reached floor 100, I still had the quest to meet Mr. Key there, and was itching to give it another go. With 39% of the vote, reaching Mr. Key's Walnut Room was voted most vital goal, and made it to the center of the bingo board. Then I randomized the remaining goals, resulting in our bright and shiny new bingo board for the next 100 days. Haley decided to start our new challenge off on the best foot by making me pancakes on the morning of day 101. To say I was disappointed in the state of my farm after that first 100 days would be an understatement, so to remedy this, I got to work organizing. I also cut down my outside fruit trees to expand my tree tapper farm. Today was the wizard's birthday, so that afternoon I was off to see the wizard to gift him a gold quality purple mushroom. Then I picked up the wizard's quest to slay ghosts for some ectoplasm. Partially because it was his birthday, but also because I ain't afraid of no ghosts. I rounded out the night by catching Willy a squid, and did some shopping for the final night of the night market. On day 102, I received a letter from Lewis letting me know that Caroline was my secret friend for the Feast of the Winter Star. I was kinda hoping for someone I had a low relationship with, but oh well. I did some work in my greenhouse, expanding my strawberry field, before heading to the mines to hunt some ghosties for the wizard, and finding the ectoplasmic specter on a lovely frozen infested floor. Then I spent the rest of the evening working on my disheveled farm. On day 103, I continued to work on cleaning up my farm, stopping briefly to drop a few omni-geodes into the sturgeon pond, then handed the ectoplasm I'd collected last night over to our friendly tower dweller. Next, I stopped by Robin's to rearrange nearly every building, and I also commissioned my very first shed. While attempting to finally purchase the iridium rod, Gus and I learned the hard way that Willy had crabs. But I managed to purchase the rod from Willy and used it to haul up the legendary glacier. No, wait, he got away. And again. Alrighty then, maybe another time. Feeling defeated, I went home to add more paths around my soon-to-be constructed shed. The next day was Evelyn's birthday, so I gifted her a diamond, then traveled to Ginger Island and decided to finally unlock the dig site. I set the professor free, apparently just in the nick of time. I feel bad for taking so long, but his name is Snail, so he must be accustomed to things moving slowly. I received a few golden walnuts for answering some trivia for Professor Snail, that I googled the answers for, of course, and explored the area north of the dig site, reaching a lovely total of 13 walnuts. I really wanted to unlock the island cabin, so I headed to the volcano where I managed to collect a total of 17 walnuts before passing out on floor 4. No cabin tonight, but I was now officially a level 10 miner, selecting the gemologist profession. When I woke up the next morning, I found a journal scrap in my backpack that would lead me to another walnut, and apparently Willy had to drag me back to the boat last night. Sorry, Willy. Robin requested that I bring her 10 pieces of hardwood, but the hardwood I currently had was intended for my next house upgrade. My shed was ready, so I started laying out my cakes in a convenient yet accessible pattern, before taking a trip back to Ginger Island to continue spelunking in the volcano. On floor 6, I came across a new mob that really burned me up, yet I managed to escape the volcano with the 20 walnuts needed to finally unlock the island hut. It felt rather strange waking up alone on the island that next morning, but I had a lot to do today and more time to do it in than usual, so I made my way straight to the volcano. I was on a mission today, a mission to reach the top, and just after 11, I'd made it to the 5th floor. Shortly after 6 p.m., I'd achieved my goal, scoring a few golden walnuts, a prismatic shard, and last but not least, marking off the first bingo spot of this new challenge. Next, I went to investigate the small cave that had opened up near my island hut. Inside was a ginormous frog who gave me 10 total walnuts for my melons and wheat growing on my tiny island farm. I headed home that night, happy with my progress so far, but knowing that I needed to get my farm in order by spring if I had any chance of meeting some of the more extravagant goals of this challenge. Today was Leah's birthday, so after taking care of farm chores, I headed over to see her and gift her a lovely piece of goat cheese, officially maxing out my hearts with Leah. I'd apparently maxed out hearts with Emily as well at some point. Later, I headed into town to drop off a prismatic shard for the missing bundle, had Clint crack open some geodes, and donated any new artifacts and gems to the museum. I spent the rest of that night placing pathing between my tapper trees and various farm beautification duties. Aw, look at Bingo keeping my side of the bed warm for me. On day 108, I decided today was the day I'd try again for the legendary glacier fish, since he can only be caught in the winter and time was running out. With the help of a fishing food buff, I managed to catch him lickety-split. Yay, my first legendary fish! That afternoon, I dropped off the caviar for the missing bundle, then headed up to Robin's to buy a stack of wood since her prices would be going up come spring. That night, I took to the mines to gather bug meat for a quest I'd picked up for Willy, and crafted a good quantity of tea saplings for the funds needed for my next house upgrade. Why, hello there, Santa! Today was the Feast of the Winter Star, so after doing some farm chores, I headed into town with a cup of tea for my secret friend Caroline. Then Willie gave me, dun dun dun, some magnet bait. I was kind of hoping for the tea set, but this is nice too. I made sure to talk to everyone before heading home for the night to place down pathing for my new storage area. Day 110 was a good humor day, and it was finally going to rain on the island tomorrow. I was also humorously close to the 50,000 needed for that house upgrade, so I made my way to Pierre's to sell some excess goods. It was Clint's birthday, but he was not in his shop. I managed to track him down in the community center to gift him a birthday topaz, before heading to Robin's to purchase that wondrous house upgrade. The rest of that day was spent traversing Skull Cavern in search of iridium and any other goodies I could get my hands on. The next morning, I filled in some more of my greenhouse and dropped by the albacore Gus had requested before heading back to Ginger Island for some rainy day walnuts. I harvested up a few walnuts with my parsnips and dug up another on the beach near Birdie's hut. I went to check the status of my walnut collection efforts and found that I was still 30 shy of entering the walnut room. I took to the volcano in search of more walnuts, but gave up rather quickly as there was little chance I'd earn all 5 walnuts needed to unlock the resort over the next few hours. At least fighting in the volcano let me reach level 9 combat. We are on the final day of winter, the final day of year 1. Checking in on our skills, we have only foraging and combat left before we max every one. Our star fruit is ready to harvest, yielding us the 3 walnuts left from farming on the island. Only 1 walnut to go before we can unlock the island resort. Can we get it from the beach mussels? Yes, we can! A bit of a shame we couldn't unlock the resort yesterday while it was raining, but at least it's done now. I decided to close down the resort for the first day of spring just in case Pierre got any funny ideas about taking a holiday tomorrow when I'd need seeds. Then I collected all of the available walnuts to the east of the resort, fishing up some additional walnuts and a few stingray in the process. I tooled around on the island for a bit until it was time for the pirates to inhabit their secret cove so that I could beat them at darts for a few more walnuts. With my new stash of walnuts, I unlocked the island trader. I headed home after a long day on the island. Robin was still hammering away on the side of the house. I wasn't sure how Bingo and Haley could sleep with all that noise Robin was making, but apparently Haley wasn't sleeping, because as soon as Robin finished upgrading the house, she asked if we should adopt a baby. We are now officially on track to have children before the 200 days are up. The spirits were in good humor on this first day of spring, year 2. And I guess Leah is an early riser because she made it there first to let me know she was having her art show in town this afternoon. Then Kent stopped by to introduce himself, and I received arguably the worst piece of mail in the entire game. I'd not been able to get as much iridium as I wanted, so I crafted as many quality sprinklers as I could before heading to Pierre's for some crop seeds. While in town, I checked out the special orders board and picked up Caroline's Island Ingredients quest to ship 100 pieces of ginger, and took a quick trip to Ginger Island to plant the garlic requested by the cave frog. Leah's art show was going on in town as I made my way back home, so it was pretty late by the time I returned and finished planting and watering my spring crops. The next morning, I planted some spring flowers over by the pond and finished up the pathing around my crop. I realized the animals were not contained, so I set about placing fences for their designated area. My first batch of shed wine was ready for collecting, and I added some additional kegs to fill with freshly picked strawberries. That night, Baba gave birth to little Noel. The sturgeons requested a nautilus shell the next day, and I told Sam he should write a song about Atlantis. Planted some spring seeds in front of the house, then grabbed a stack of stone, some fiber, and 9 star fruit as I was off to see the wizard to build my very first Junimo hut. But I was a few thousand shy. Maybe tomorrow. I made a few tea saplings to ship off that night with the hopes of making the 7,000 needed for my friendly farm helper's home. Though now I was out of the fiber needed. Whoops. That night I reached foraging level 10 and selected the botanist profession. Today was Kent's birthday, so I headed to his house, only to find that he was not home. I managed to track Kent down by the river to gift him a birthday egg and start on Birdie's quest chain. Kent gave me some gourmet tomato salt to bring to Gus, who gave me a Stardew Valley rose to cart to the desert for Sandy, who gave me the advanced TV remote that I raced over to give to, oh, hi Alex. Anyhow, George gave me an Arctic shard in exchange for the remote, so I gave it to the wizard, who begrudgingly gave me a wriggling worm to get me to leave. By now it was close to 5, so I raced down to the ocean dock, but Willie had already closed up shop, so after trading Willie the worm for a pirate's locket, I made a mental note to finish up this quest chain back on Ginger Island another day. Before bed, I laid out some pathing for the area I hope to place down a wonderful Junimo hut once my latest batch of fiber had grown. My fiber crop was ready that next morning, so I scythed it up, stopped quickly by the traveling cart to pick up a rare seed, then headed to the tower to build my very first Junimo hut. Next, I traveled to Ginger Island to work on my relationship with Leo. The garlic was ready, so I showed the cave frog my crops for another 5 golden walnut, and I gave Birdie the pirate's locket for another 5. I was now only 4 walnuts shy of entering Mr. Key's secret room, so I stayed overnight in the hut with the hopes of finding the 4 walnuts needed the next day. I didn't find any more walnuts that next morning, but I grabbed some ginger for Caroline's quest before heading back to the valley and had Clint open up some artifact troves for the museum collection. That night, I crafted more kegs to expand my shed wine production capabilities. On that first Sunday in spring, I filled out my greenhouse with more ancient fruit before bringing Lewis a vegetable medley for his birthday and earning the beloved farmer achievement. Then I headed to Skull Cavern because it was a good luck day and I was in need of iridium. I made it to level 44 before deciding to call it for the night. As I was looking at my bingo card the next morning, I noticed that we already had 2 of the 5 spots needed for one of the bingo goals. So I got to work organizing ingredients I'd eventually need to cook every available recipe. I should probably note that every available recipe means every recipe with the exception of the poppy muffin, bruschetta, and shrimp cocktail, as I would not learn these recipes from the Queen of Sauce until winter after the 200 days were up. That afternoon, I cruised back over to the island to shimmy search for materials and collect more ginger for Caroline, before heading to the volcano in search of walnuts. Oof, still need 2 more. Most of my island crops were ready the next morning, so I set to work harvesting, before heading west to collect even more ginger. I had 20 days to harvest the remaining 50, so I think I can get there. I panned up the fossilized tail at the dig site, then made my way back to the farm and collected the crops the Junimos had collected for me. I love them so much, and not just because of the crop assistance. The rest of the night I spent organizing chests and gathering cooking ingredients to add to the fridge. Wednesday was Vincent's birthday, so after doing my farm chores, I grabbed a gold quality grape to bring to him. Vincent wasn't home, but I took the opportunity to grab the statue out of his toy chest. I stopped by the special orders board to choose between potatoes and potatoes. I chose potatoes. Then found the birthday boy hanging out by the river with Jas and Penny. I wanted to get more spring seeds, but got there just as Pierre was leaving. Apparently, you can't catch him on the way out like you can with Robin. Who knew? I'd need to harvest 100 potatoes over the next couple weeks, so I asked the Junimos not to harvest and gave them the friend I'd found in Vincent's room, before spending the evening foraging in the forest. On Thursday, after caring for my farm, I picked up a quest to bring Willie a ruby, then promptly forgot. I then made my way into Pierre's for a load of potato seeds. That afternoon, I headed to the island to plant some crops, and bought a mango sapling and banana pudding recipe from the island trader. I used some extra walnuts to build the bridge inside the volcano, then spent the rest of the night treasure hunting until I found just enough walnuts to enter Mr. Key's walnut room. And you know, I couldn't resist accepting the Danger in the Deep quest and checking the perfection tracker. 36% is pretty good for day 123, right? I spent the next morning searching for ginger since I still had 40 to collect. Once back home, I planted the mango sapling in the greenhouse, then brought a jar of dino mayo over to the missing bundle, before donning my helmet and preparing to enter the danger mine. The mines were slow going, and I only made it to level 10 before calling it for the night. Just like Baba the sheep had done, my only goat Billy somehow gave birth, and I named the new goat Millie. A quarter of the way through this challenge brings us to the Year 2 Egg Festival. So after chatting with everyone, I let the kids win the... I followed the same route and won the egg hunt because, well, I like gold. It was late when I returned home, so I spent some time on the farm crafting recipes for my completion goal. It was my lovely wife's birthday on day 126, and she made me some fresh bread. Later that morning, I made sure to bring her an iridium quality coconut before making my way to the rainy island for some harvesting. Then headed to the beach to complete the Mermaid's Walnut Challenge, completed the snake in the field office, and collected more ginger for Caroline's special order. I needed Gus to come to the island at some point so that I could purchase a recipe and maybe a bottle of quality wine, so I reopened the beach resort. I felt bad that I was spending Haley's birthday night on the island, but felt even worse when I got the notification that our baby girl had been delivered overnight. I named her Ginger because, well, sometimes I'm not so creative. It was Monday when I woke up on the island the next day, so I headed over to the Walnut Room and selected the Skull Cavern Invasion quest from Mr. Key. Though my ability to complete this quest was questionable. I knew I'd need to purchase the tropical curry recipe from Gus at the beach resort, so I hung out on the island until the Stardew residents arrived to see if he would come. But he did not. Maybe another day. Then I headed back to town to pick up the Prismatic Jelly quest from the Special Orders board, before heading home to hold my daughter Ginger for the very first time. But she was asleep. Then I headed to the mines in search of the Prismatic Jelly requested by the wizard. Completion of this quest would grant me access to the Monster Musk recipe that I needed for crafting, as well as being an item that would help me more quickly finish all the monster eradication goals. On day 128, I had a wine batch completed, so I refilled the kegs with strawberries, before taking a ride around Cindersnap Forest in search of salmon berries and forageables. That night, I headed to visit Krobus and caught a rather upsetting scene between him and the dwarf. I hate seeing these two fighting. Luckily, the wizard swooped in to end the conflict, and I was able to purchase a void egg and some recipes from Krobus without further incident. Back on the farm, I placed the void egg in the incubator to hatch a mysterious new chicken friend. It was finally raining on day 129, which meant I could try for the fish who eluded me the spring of the first 100 days, the legend. I chowed down on a tasty dish of the sea before setting out for my day's mission of catching that elusive beast. I managed to catch the legend within the hour, even snagging a few magma geodes from a treasure chest he'd brought up with him from the depths of the lake. My fishing buff was still active, so I decided to try for the void salmon needed for the missing bundle as well as fishing completion, and was able to haul that fish up in a few hours' time. Then did a cheeky side quest to fish up the ornate necklace from the bathhouse fountain. Wasn't sure yet if I would give this to Caroline or Abigail, but it would probably be Abigail since I think I have lower hearts with her and she gives more friendship points for returning the necklace. I was on a fishing roll, so I grabbed the slime jack from the mutant bug lair before dropping off the void salmon for the missing bundle. Now I'd need either a silver quality wine or I could use 5 gold quality ancient fruit. Which do you think I'll acquire first? By day 130, I had at least 10 hearts with 8 villagers, and a few more of the bachelors at max heart. Also, can I just say that I love the money box mechanic in place when some of the vendors are visiting the island? If I had known this, I wouldn't have had to shut down the island the first day of spring when I thought Pierre might leave me high and dry without seeds. Unlike Pierre, Robin was in her shop, and I decided today was the day I'd splurge on the final house upgrade. So yeah, my wallet was now 100,000 gold lighter. Then I spent the evening diving in the mines in search of the prismatic jelly for the wizard's quest, and while I didn't find the jelly, I did snag a prismatic shard off a very fortuitous bat around midnight. The next morning, I handpicked some potatoes for a quest before letting the Junimos harvest any other completed crops. Then ran around town handing out gifts to raise relationships further. Ironically, Kent told me that his wife hates daffodils, and that is what I was bringing him because he actually likes them. After passing out my gifts in town, I headed over to the island to harvest crops waiting there, found the mummified frog hiding in the grass, placed a banana on the shrine for 3 more golden walnuts, and gave Leo a duck feather I'd been saving for him. Not surprisingly, Leo was the character I had the least hearts with at the moment. I wanted to see if Ginger would be alert tomorrow, so I made my way back home that night. But she was still a sleepy little burrito the next morning. After doing some farm chores, I had Clint open a few dozen geodes, and commissioned my pickaxe be upgraded to iridium. Since today was Shane's birthday, I went looking for him, but he was not home, and he was not in the community center, though isn't it so cozy in here now? I ended up finding him hanging out at the saloon, and in hindsight, this should have been the first place I checked. Back at home, I placed some of my special fish into a tank before heading to bed. I started the next day off in a bigger house with some lovely casks in the basement that I placed wine into to begin the aging process. It was Sunday, so gift giving had reset for the week, and I continued my mission of befriending everyone for most of the day. And now only Kent and Leo were below 5 hearts. The next day was dark, dank, and dreary, and I was still sitting at level 9 combat, so I figured I should pick up the Juicy Bugs quest for Willy. I decided to give Abigail the necklace I'd fished out of the fountain and actually caught her on the way to the island. Hope Caroline didn't see that from around the corner. My main goal on the island today was picking up another key quest and harvesting the remaining ginger Caroline had requested. Here we go, Danger in the Deep Take 2. Though I had 7 days this time instead of the 4 days for completion on my last attempt. I turned in the fossilized skull to Professor Snail, so now the only piece missing was the fossilized spine that a quick search on Wiki showed I could dig up on the southern beach or fish up in the dig site river. Haley asked if I'd been practicing for the flower dance the next morning, and I didn't have the heart to tell her she might not be my partner this year. You see, dancing with someone grants 250 points of friendship, a full heart, so it'd be most beneficial for me to dance with the bachelor I had the lowest relationship with. Really hoping this wasn't Alex so that Haley could still at least participate in the dance. It was a wine day, so I replaced all the strawberries in the kegs and added some new kegs to fill out the shed. Then tentatively checked out my bachelor heart situation. Phew, Sebastian was the lowest, so I wouldn't even have to contemplate taking Haley's partner for the dance, since I know how much the flower dance means to her. A new void chicken hatched and I named it Obsidian. And I made a stop by Clint's to pick up my iridium axe, then took to the danger mines to work on both Key and Willie's quests. I'd forgotten to don my helm, so I only made it to level 10 before it was time to head home. And yes, the missing helm was certainly the reason progression was slow. I'm sure it had nothing to do with my lack of skill. As I passed by the southern edge of town, I realized I was in the right location and time to catch a cheeky little rendezvous between Lewis and Marnie. So I triggered it. It was the day of the flower dance. After I took care of some regular farm chores and took a rabbit's foot over to the Joja truck for a special charm, I headed on down to the dance to purchase the tub of flowers recipe, talked to everyone in attendance, then asked if Sebastian would be my dance partner for that extra friendship bump. Instead of dancing with my wife, I danced next to Haley, which was almost as good, and I've got to say, her head adornment might have been slightly better than mine. Just slightly though. I'd finished the potato shipment request overnight and received a mini shipping bin from Lewis that next morning. Then commissioned another pond be built by Robin so that I could work on the aged row needed for shipping completion. Next, I stopped into Sebastian's room. Dancing with him yesterday had given me the 6 hearts needed for one of my favorite heart events in the game. I became a powerful wizard and managed to finish the scenario with an A rating. I ran into another heart event, this time with Shane, a bit later on that afternoon. And am so excited that I now have access to blue chickens. I named my first one Bonnie and now have only the ostrich left to go before I can cross the tier 2 animal bingo spot off my list. That afternoon, I headed over to Ginger Island and got my very first heart event with Leo. I spent some time fishing in the dig site that night and managed to pull up the fossilized spine, fully completing the field office fossils and receiving the ostrich incubator recipe along with 6 golden walnuts. I completed the island ingredient request overnight, so I'd no longer have to dig up every piece of ginger I saw. But I only had 3 more days to make it 110 levels in the mine and find 85 more pieces of bug meat. I decided to fish on the island while waiting for the valley residents to show up in the morning, just hoping that Gus would come. And even though it appeared to be a guy's day out, sadly Gus was not among them. Once back in the valley, I gifted Pierre a birthday daffodil and took care of farm chores for the rest of the night. My greenhouse had produce ready on day 139, so after harvesting and more farm chores, I gifted my sister-in-law a topaz for her birthday. Then dropped off the gold quality ancient fruit I'd plucked from the greenhouse, finally completing the missing bundle, letting the final Junimo return to his home. So now I guess the only Junimos left in the valley are the ones on my farm. I donned my squire's helm in an attempt to rush the final 100 plus levels of the mine, and made it all the way to level 17 until I gave up and headed home. That night, I saw the last Junimo Dance of Magic as they transformed the old Joja Mart into the marvelous new movie theater for the town. It's the final day of spring, and I'm not sure if the spouse dialogue is random or if this is a Haley joke, but she seems keen on watering the crops for me on the final day of a season. Emily invited me to Lewis's for a little clothing therapy, and I vaguely remember this event being both hilarious and uncomfortable at the same time. My second fish pond was complete, so I grabbed a super cucumber from the tank and tossed it in to start rowing. Then I was in for a night of comic relief at the fashion show. I decided to build another shed instead of upgrading the current one since I had the space picked out and it was actually cheaper and only resulted in a few less available keg spots. The movie theater was up, and it was the first and last day to see The Brave Little Sapling. So I asked the dwarf to come see it since he was the resident who liked this movie that I had the lowest relationship with. That night, I worked on crafting towards my completionist goal and did some decorating in the back room. Ginger was finally an interactive bab on the first day of summer, and Pierre was heading with his family for a little island daycation, which stressed me out a bit, until I saw that he left the money box out again so that I could still make my summer seed purchases. Thank goodness. I spent that afternoon setting up summer crops around my Junimo friends, taking a quick break to see the new season's movie feature with the lovely Sandy. While at the movies, I'd snagged a few trees from the crane game to give Haley even more foliage for her photo area, then finished planting and watering for the rest of the night. The next day, I took care of farm chores before accepting a quest to bring 80 hardwood to Robin for a project. Later, I headed to the island and while there, crafted the ostrich incubator that might be useful if I ever managed to find an ostrich egg. I was missing a couple journal scraps, the next of which would give me the location of a walnut dig spot that also happened to contain an ostrich egg. According to the wiki, there's an 8% chance for a note to be found in place of trash while fishing. So I took to the Gourmand's cave for several hours in the hopes of snagging the elusive journal scrap. I spent most of day 143 on the island panning, searching for artifact spots, and fishing up mostly trash. Once back in the valley that night, I headed to the secret woods to harvest some of the hardwood requested by Robin, and welcome in Baba's second baby sheep, who I named Have Wool. The next day, it was raining in the valley, and my heart situation was progressing nicely. Speaking of heart situations, I found Bingo up in Ginger's room, spending time with her. So cute. Deciding to work on my Noah's Ark bingo spot a bit, I purchased Jessica Rabbit to keep Roger company. I gave Jas a loved gift of plum pudding for her birthday, then dropped by the sewers to chat with Krobus and attempt to fish up the mutant carp. It took a few hours, but I finally reeled him in. Since my fishing buff was still active, I spent most of that evening fishing in the ocean. I'd picked up Key's Hungry quest and thought day 145 might be a good day to attempt it, so I walked over to the desert bright and early, and nearly died after dropping 13 levels into the waiting jaws of a serpent. Yeah, maybe I'll just work on my fishing goals and reel up the scorpion carp instead. Back at home, I worked on cooking new recipes after having taken care of the usual farm chores. On the first summer Saturday, a new chicken named Jaeger hatched, and I set a dino egg to incubate in its place. When I visited the island that day, I caught Leo in a sad mood, so I gave him a duck feather in the hopes it might cheer him up, then became sad myself in the volcano for the remainder of the evening, in the seemingly never-ending hunt for walnuts. Sunday morning, I made poi to share with Leo, and the parrot in his hut let me know I needed to head back into the volcano if I wanted more of those missing walnuts. So back in I headed, then swiftly changed my mind, deciding that my time would be best spent continuing to search for the ostrich-bearing journal scrap. Later, I collected the last pieces of hardwood needed for Robin's quest, and raced over to her house to drop them off, completing the quest in the nick of time. It was Gus's birthday on the 8th of summer, so I brought him his customary birthday orange, then fished up the legendary crimson fish off the Eastern Ocean Pier, before snagging a new quest off the special orders board. Well, I say new, but it was actually a retry of the prismatic jelly hunt. Next, I stopped into Robin's and saw the marvelous bed she'd crafted with the hardwood I'd supplied, and finished off the night with a search through the mines for a special slime, but finding mostly sprites instead. Day 149 was a wine day, so I refilled my kegs with strawberries, and later headed to the mine, this time with my helm on, so you know I really meant to find that jelly. But I don't think I'm ready for that jelly, so I headed home for the night. We're halfway through the bingo challenge, so let's take a look at our progress so far. We need to make a bit over 100,000 gold to reach 1 million earned. We still need a level in combat. Our lowest hearts is with Leo at 4. We have 4 items left to ship, 5 fish left to catch, and we are closing in on the museum collection. That morning, I loaded up on loved gifts and headed out through the rain, making sure to bring Maru a strawberry for her birthday, before putting on my official mine diving helmet to continue the search for that pesky prismatic slime. I found him fairly quickly, trying to hide in a corner on floor 57. Since I was already at the mines, I thought I should work on fishing completion, so I started up on floor 100, but all I was catching was trash, so I dropped down to floor 60 to catch an ice pip, then 20 for a stonefish. I would try to fish up the lava eel at the volcano later on, while simultaneously hunting for the journal scrap needed for the ostrich egg. That night, I brought the wizard a mushroom and the prismatic jelly. I'd been neglecting the normal request board, so I only just now earned the Gopher achievement for completing 10 requests. The wizard sent me the recipe for monster musk that next morning. I'd shipped off the cabbage and aged roe the night before, meaning I only had the mango and ostrich egg left for shipping completion. And catching the dorado while waiting for the luau meant I was only missing the angler and the lava eel for fishing completion. We are getting so close on these goals. Once at the luau, I threw a starfruit into the vat, earning the best reaction possible from the mayor. Look at that lovely friendship game. I hadn't been to the island in a few days, so a lot of my crops were ready to harvest. After I took care of that, I stopped by to give Leo a snack. Then made my way to the volcano summit to fish for the lava eel, trash that I hoped would convert to journal scraps, and apparently this lovely physics painting. It didn't take long before I caught my first lava eel. Now only the legendary angler, who'd be available in fall, was left for fishing. I gave up on finding the journal scrap after some mocking from the lava monkeys, spending the rest of the day looking for walnuts inside the volcano dungeon. Somehow Evelyn knew I'd be on the island day 153 as I woke up to some cookies in the mail, then hung out on the island until it was tourist time. But Gus was not among the passengers, so I headed home and ran into a dark, dank, and dreamy heart scene with Sebastian. Back home, I hung the physics painting in Ginger's room and gave her a snuggle. Oh, and Haley made me a muffin. Rumor has it it's always raining on Alex's birthday, and today proved to be no different. So I interrupted his workout to gift him a complete breakfast at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, though I guess it's never a bad time for breakfast. Then I invited the dwarf to come see Journey of the Prairie King. He seemed to have a great time. That night, I checked in on the Monster Slayer goals and saw I was getting pretty close on a few of the goals. Ginger was on the move the next morning, though I have to admit she did startle me a bit, crawling across the floor like a little caterpillar. It had been a few days since I'd been inside the cube, so the eggs were really starting to pile up. And my mango tree had also finished growing a few days ago, so I shipped one of the mangoes, leaving only the ostrich egg to ship, which I've still yet to find. I had a shocking encounter with Maru that afternoon, then spent the evening doing farm chores until bedtime. On day 155, Kent requested I bring a starfruit for him to gift Jody, and I was so excited at the opportunity to raise my friendship with Kent that I raced over to their house, but of course it was too early to enter. So while I waited, I ran over to the special orders board and picked up the tropical fish quest from Willie, since I still had some fishing to do on the island while looking for journal scrap number 10. I then dropped the starfruit off at Kent's, bumping us up to an impressive 8 hearts, before spending the day fishing on the island. I did not catch the journal scrap while fishing, but lo and behold, this glorious tiger slime dropped it while I was in the volcano later that night. I raced out of the volcano to collect my prize and considered sending it through the shipping bin since it was the last item I had left to ship, but thought better of it. After doing a little math, I felt I had enough time for this ostrich to hatch and lay an egg well before the 200 days were up. And I also needed an ostrich for the tier 2 animal spot, so I placed both the incubator and the egg in the barn once I arrived home that night. On day 156, I checked the barn to make sure I hadn't dreamt up the ostrich egg, and sure enough, it was there. Also, there was a full shed of wine. I say full, but I know I actually had space for another row of kegs. So after I'd collected all the wine, I moved around some kegs to make room for the back row. That's better. I still needed to catch a few fish for Willie, so I made my way back to the island, and was rudely booted from the Pirate's Cove mid-fishing. But I managed to haul in all the lionfish and stingray needed for the quest before heading home that night. The next day, Sandy sent me a letter in the mail, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think anyone else sends letters on lined paper that's been ripped from a folder. It's kind of adorable. So I took her advice and got ready to head for the— whoops, I did not mean to use that yet. Once I got my bearings, I took to the mines, but I was pretty low on supplies, so I did a lot of juking while looking for ladders. See, look at all those jukes. Even without a full loadout, I made it to floor 64 before making my way out of the mine. Day 158, I headed straight away to Ginger Island to continue work on the tropical fish quest, and yes, that out-of-reach panning spot taunted me for quite some time. I fished the final fish that afternoon, just as my tackle wore out, then made it back to the farm to welcome in my new lizard, Zeke. The tropical fish quest paid off in a big fish tank way, so I placed a few of the legendary fish into the new deluxe tank and moved about some others. Vincent and I had a laugh about monsters that afternoon. Then I stopped into the saloon and saw that Gus had his away box out, meaning I could finally catch Gus manning the beach resort. I didn't need the gold quality wine for the missing bundle anymore, but I snagged up the tropical curry recipe needed for cooking completion. And can we just appreciate my gold balance for a minute? I think Clint may have been hanging out with Abigail recently because he told me he was hungry and then I gave him a topaz and, well, that evening I caught Demetrius on his way to the saloon to gift him a birthday strawberry. Later I took to the mines to farm monsters and ore. On day 160, I was on a mission to raise friendships, so I loaded up my pack and set out. Cue the gift-giving montage. Somewhere in there, I also asked Clint to upgrade my axe to iridium, purchased 2 auto-grabbers and a pig named Waggly from Marnie, and went to see Journey of the Prairie King with Sandy. The Queen of Sauce made my wife somewhat of a celebrity the next morning by highlighting her pink cake recipe request on her Sunday morning show. After visiting with Krobus in the sewers, I asked the Statue of Uncertainty to reset my foraging profession, then put on my helmet and spent the night testing how well Monster Musk works. And I'd say it worked fairly well because I completed the bat goal a few hours later, then the Dust Sprite goal a couple of hours after that. I barely missed picking up my burglar's ring from the Adventurers Guild, so I'd have to come collect my prize on a later day. Overnight, I reset my foraging profession to Forester for increased wood, and was surprised to see I'd leveled up combat to become a brute. My axe was ready the next morning, and combining that with the Forester perk, I was hoping to find a certain resource rush request on a special order board. But before I checked the board, I ran over to gift the dwarf a topaz for his birthday. And now for the moment of truth. There's no wood gathering request. So I picked the Juicy Bugs request from Willie and hoped I would actually complete it this time. Then I grabbed my iridium axe from Clint and commenced a day of deforestation. On day 163, Sandy sent me another cute note with some tomka soup, and I made a little more keg progress in my second shed. Later that day, I stopped in to snag my lovely burglar's ring, and checked on the remaining eradication goals. First page is looking pretty good, but whoops, let's not look too closely at the second page. The rest of that night, I worked on collecting bug meat for Willie with the help of my helm and some musky perfume. Sam stopped by that next rainy Wednesday morning, asking me to meet him at the bus stop at 4. But today was going to be a bit of a doozy, so Sam might have to wait on me like I'd done last year for his birthday. That morning, I decided to switch over the strawberry wine to blueberry, then dropped off the bug meat to Willie's bin. And the reward money for that pushed me over 1 million gold earned. I wanted to celebrate with a movie, so I invited Leo to catch a film as he had the lowest hearts. And while on the island, I picked up Key's prismatic Grange quest, then found out that Leo was ready to say goodbye to island life to come live in Pelican Town. It was 5:30 as I was making my way home, so I was rather shocked to see that half the town had been waiting for me to arrive at the bus stop in the rain since 4. Sorry everyone. After that show, I headed off to catch another show, this time The Prairie King with Leo. And yes, this is like the 3rd time I've seen this film, but it's such a good way to raise relationship points. I finished up the night decorating the house with a few more pieces I'd snagged from the crane game, but Leo's bird family showed me up on the decoration skills as they designed a complete treehouse for Leo that night. Oh, and I updated my foraging skill back to botanist as I was sick of having multiple stacks of the same item in my inventory. I was intent on finally finishing a key quest, so I gathered up the materials needed for the colorful Grange. Then found my first ostrich egg had hatched, so now I have every animal type available for this challenge. Welcome in Ollie the Ostrich. I brought Lewis his requested slip oil, and ran into a melancholy heart scene with Alex. That was immediately replaced by an uncomfortable scene with Willie and the bug meat I'd collected for him. Then I surprised Elliot while he was writing with a suggestion of a mystery novel, because who doesn't like a good mystery? By the way, does anyone else get major Beauty and the Beast vibes from the rose in this scene? After the plethora of cutscenes, I headed to Ginger Island to drop off my Rainbow Grange for Key. And a quick check showed I still had 43% to go to reach perfection. So I took to the mines for a little more walnut hunting the rest of the night. On the final Friday of summer, there was an egg ready to hatch, but my coop was full. Luckily, one of the ducks had dropped a feather that would be a perfect gift for Leo's birthday today. I thought I might also invite Leo to the movies for his birthday, so I grabbed a few tickets, but he declined my invitation, which was fine because the birthday gift had already bumped us up to 10 hearts. I then asked Kent if he would go catch a flick, but he said no as well. Feeling a bit rejected, I headed off to bed before midnight, which I think may have been the earliest bedtime this entire run. The next day, I mostly ran about the farm crafting missing items, only taking a break that afternoon to see Robin about a coop for my excess poultry. On the final day of summer, I was fortunate enough to witness a truffle magic trick, and since it was Sunday, I loaded up on items for the start of the gifting week. Cue the second gift-giving montage of the series. All the gifting meant I was 4 hearts away from full hearts perfection. While running about town, I also spent a disturbing amount of gold on summer seeds as I was under the delusion that I would be planting them on Ginger Island in the coming weeks. That night, I picked up a few souvenirs from the Moonlight Jellies Festival for Ginger, as she was still a touch too young to join Haley and me out on the dock as the jellies danced about in the moonlight. Day 169 was the beginning of fall, so I first took stock of the fall seeds already in my chest, then picked up a few hundred more at Pierre's, and spent the rest of the day planting and watering and planting. Now, before we get into Tuesday's event, I should let you know that day 170 was brought to you by the number 2 and the letter A. You'll see what I mean. After doing some farm chores, I double-checked my heart situation. I still had 4 hearts left to go, and it was Penny's birthday, so I prepared myself for another day of gift giving. The gift I gave the wizard was not good enough to reach 10 hearts, so I invited him to come see a movie with me later that day. Then I gifted the tom kha soup I'd set aside for Penny's birthday to... Oh no, can we see that again in slow motion? How could I possibly confuse these 2 ladies? But there it is. Absolutely astounding gameplay. I continued hauling about gifts, blissfully unaware of my blunder, and managed to reach 10 hearts with Krobus, then with Kent, and finally George, who was the last on my gift-giving list for the day. I checked the special orders board and was excited to see Robin's resource rush, but disappointed because she was looking for stone instead of wood. I took the quest anyways, but thought it unlikely I'd do as requested. Then took a quick stop to pick up another key quest. I'd be doing the Prismatic Grange quest for the second time. But first it was time to see the Autumn Flick Mysterium with the wizard in the hopes of maxing out this final relationship. The movie fit in with the spooky season, and the wizard was certainly enjoying it. Afterwards, I was at max hearts with all of the villagers. What an affectionate achievement. But wait, there's more. Because next I went fishing and reeled in my final fish, the legendary angler. For those of you keeping score at home, that is 2 bingo spots achieved in a single day. And that concludes the day brought to you by the letter A and the number 2. Oh, and a bonus points if you notice that this was the second day of fall or autumn in year 2. The next morning, Willie sent me my 6th star drop, and I was filled with thoughts of bingo. I thought I should work on monster slaying goals and collecting stones, so I donned my helmet and headed into the mines, switching later to bombing the quarry for additional stone. The next day, I thought I should work on monster slaying goals and collecting stones, for a bit of deja vu. But also, I still needed to gather another 600 stones, so I hung out in the mines that entire day. On day 173, I made the tough decision to place the first egg Ollie laid into the incubator instead of shipping it to complete the shipping progress. And hear me out, it's because I also had a Noah's Ark bingo spot that would be complete once I had 2 of every animal. I finally remembered I could buy an iridium sprinkler from Krobus on Fridays, so I did. Then it was back to the mines on the hunt for stone. Around 10 o'clock that night, I had mined the final piece. I was back home a bit early, so I rummaged through my chest for the items needed to complete the Prismatic Grange the next day. I headed to Ginger Island that next morning and went directly to the Walnut Room to collect my key gems, with which I bought my first ever horse flute. So now Winnie can join me on the island. Gus was visiting the island again today, which was fortunate because I had a lobster he'd requested on me. I didn't do too much else on day 174 except started a go chest in case a Skull Cavern run beckoned me. The next morning, I used my purchased iridium sprinkler to fill out the Junimo Hut area, and I had been neglecting my greenhouse so it was bursting with berries to harvest. It was Sunday, so I also went to trade in my excess jade for staircases, before heading to the mines to continue slaying those monsters. Another Monday meant I had another shot at picking up those all-important crafting recipe quests, like Gunther's Fragments of the Past quest, tasking me with gathering bone fragments. In the Walnut Room, I contemplated picking up the Granger quest for the third time in a row, but decided the Danger in the Deep quest might be more beneficial. On the way back to the valley, I hit a bit of a traffic jam, but it cleared up pretty swiftly. And then I was on my way to the mines. Oh right, the lift's out. Time to helm dive the mine one ladder at a time. I made it to level 15 before I decided to head home for the night. The next day, Kent sent me some explosives in the mail, and Lewis reminded me I'd need to gather 9 items for the Stardew Valley Fair Grange next week. Then I dove helm first back into the mines, where I stayed until I reached the lovely level 45, where I called it for the night, because I had kegs that needed restocking back at home. Checking my journal the next morning, I saw that I was about a third of the way through both the key quest and Gunther's request, so it was back to the mines yet again, where I made it to level 81 before deciding to head home. Ironically, both quests I was working on were around 2/3 complete that next day, so I figured another day in the mines just might do it for both. And though I was right about Danger Mines completion, I hadn't gotten a single piece of bone from the last 40 levels of the mine, so completion of that task would have to wait for another day. On day 180, Ollie joined me in the barn to show me she'd laid another egg, and I was out of reason to procrastinate completing the shipping achievement, so of course, I headed to Ginger Island in search of bone fragments, with the ostrich egg still in my pack. I did manage to notice I still had the egg on me and tossed it in the Island Hut shipping bin, but I'm going to hold off on marking the bingo spot until I see that wonderful achievement appear. I spent the remainder of the evening in the volcano on the hunt for the final 4 walnuts. Bingo! With completion of the shipping achievement, we have officially reached bingo on day 181. I'd managed to achieve bingo on day 100 in the last series, but for this video, I technically had 20 days left. I was a bit miffed I hadn't thought to collect 50 hats so I could get a double bingo in one go. And that got me thinking, how many bingos could I get in these 200 days? Without jumping ahead, let me know in the comments how many times you think I completed a bingo on this card by the end of day 200. I wanted to finish up Gunther's request, and after clearing out all the bone nodes at the dig site, I was at 99 fragments collected. So I took to the quarry mines, where I discovered that haunted skulls do not, in fact, drop bone fragments, which is when I headed to the skeleton level of the regular mine and made short work of collecting the final fragment. After a quick reading of Elliot's book that absolutely everyone stuck around for, I dropped off the 100 bone fragments along with another artifact for the museum collection. Ginger was totting about that next morning. I received the bone meal recipe from Gunther, and Sandy sent me yet another bowl of soup. Since I hadn't done any decorating in my house, I decided to pick up the catalog from Pierre and furniture catalog from Robin. I also moved the empty coop down below the animal fencing, upgrading it to a big coop, and did some home renovations while at Robin. Then I spent a ridiculously long time, real and in-game, trying to decorate. Trying being the operative word. Thankfully, Haley reminded me I needed to gather items for the Grange display the next morning. While doing farm tours, I remembered to move my dinos to the new coop, so now they were free-range lizards. I welcomed a new ostrich Folly, and completely forgot that there was an egg waiting to hatch in the main coop. Instead, I picked up Pierre's prime produce request, headed to the desert to give Sandy a birthday flower, trade Omni Geodes for artifact troves, and plant a forest load of trees. Then made my way to Ginger Island and picked up quite possibly the meanest quest in the game. You'll see what I mean. I also threw down a batch of tree seeds outside the walnut room for good measure. Around midnight, I remembered there was an egg waiting to hatch in the coop, and I called my new bird Big. The next morning was shed wine time, one of which I added to a collection of nice things before heading off to the fair, where I set up my display and then displayed a feat of strength, or timing. This year, I increased my rating over last year by 6, so once again, I took home top prize. Before heading home for the night, can we just take a minute to look at how adorable Ginger is running about the fair? I'd need to harvest 25 gold quality vegetables for Pierre's quest, so the next morning, I asked the Junimos to take the next few days off. Next, I stopped by Robin's for the final upgrade of the Dino's coop, then ran over to see what Clint could find me for the museum collection. I was able to donate 2 items to the museum, leaving only the ancient sword and prehistoric skull to complete the collection. The rest of the day, I tried to work out the best way to collect key beans, since I needed to grow 500 fruit over the next dozen days. I decided deforestation was the winner, since I could use all the wood I could get. My cute little hat rack was up and about when I woke up on day 186, so after saying good morning, I popped outside to sprinkle a little deluxe speed grow on some key beans. And since I really wanted to grow the 500 key fruit, I headed to the desert and bought more deluxe speed grow from Sandy since she had it in stock on Thursdays. Then I asked the Statue of Uncertainty to reset my farming skills, and continued collecting and planting key beans for the rest of the day. For my farming profession reset that night, I selected Agriculturalist for faster crops. The next morning, I received a letter from Pam requesting a battery, and since it was Friday, I went to purchase an iridium sprinkler from Krobus. Then spent the day in search of those cheeky key beans, taking a quick detour into the quarry mines to try for the prehistoric skull. I also reset my fishing profession to pirate that night, in the hopes of catching more key beans and artifact-bearing chests. The first of the key fruit had grown the next day, and they were a bit frightening. So I spent the day propagating and planting the creepy beans, before scouring the valley for even more. I must admit, I'm starting to regret picking up this quest. Luckily, it was showering on Sunday because today was going to be lather, rinse, repeat with the key beans. Though I did need to take a break to fish at the ocean for some eels needed for recipes. Once back home that night, I cooked up a few dishes, leaving only the fried calamari and fiddlehead risotto as the available recipes left to cook within 200 game days. And today in Stardew, I learned that Haley wanted me to get the full house achievement before the end of the year. So we're adopting another baby. I believe the second child is the opposite gender of the first, so let me know a good name for Ginger's little brother. The next day, I bulked up my key bean proliferation with the addition of 4 seed makers. I'd gotten the grow time of the fruit down to 2 days with the combination of fertilizer and profession perks. But it was going to be a race to the finish if I wanted the full 500 fruit shipped. It was Monday, so I stopped by the special orders board, but decided not to take on either request. Then I swung by the Walnut Room and picked up the Junimo Cart quest for a bit of a laugh. Though the joke's on me because I didn't even touch the game once in the 7 days. Later that night, I went into the volcano in search of walnuts and beans and other things. On day 191, I had 6 days left for the 500 fruit, so I got to picking and seeding immediately that morning, and expanded my key crops well into the evening. The next day was more of the same, planting and harvesting and harvesting and planting. But the next day was different, because I took a quick break from planting to buy more speed grow from Sandy. These key gems had better be worth it. I had a bit of a humor reprieve from the stress of the key fruit crops when Pam sent me a battery on day 194. You know, the item she had requested I bring to her. Oh, Pam. After I spent most of the day on my final key crop expansion, I took another trip to the quarry mine still in search of the prehistoric skull, one of my 2 remaining artifacts for the museum. There were only 2 days left for the key fruit quest, so I collected the ripened fruit and hoped that I'd planted enough the previous day. Though the missed speed grow spot in this batch was not a good sign. I managed to get myself stuck behind Winnie in a bush on my way to see the Hat Mouse, but I figured it out eventually and bought as many hats as I could fit in my pack to start working towards the 50 hat collection bingo spot. Later, I took a second trip for hats and nearly blocked myself out again. You'd think I'd learn. After these new hats were stored, I had 30 unique hats in my dresser. Then I began crafting hats on the sewing machine, starting first with that mischievous key fruit and praying that I didn't turn up 1 fruit short the next day. In an attempt to snazz up my Spirit's Eve garb, I donned my new fashion hat and traded Winnie my garbage hat for the skull mask in case I wanted to dress up as a skelly at the festival. I bought the jack-o'-lantern recipe I'd skipped out on last year and found my way through the maze as a spooky, scary skeleton. Though I wish I had brought my other fedora so that Ginger and I could be in matching costumes. There's always next year, I suppose. It was the final day of fall, which meant I would be learning the last cooking recipe for these 100 days, fiddlehead risotto. I made the risotto immediately, so by my calculation, I only needed to catch a squid come winter, and I would be able to cook the last recipe for the bingo spot. As I headed outside, the rain fell heavy on my shoulders as I prepared to harvest the remaining key fruit for the quest. Remember how I was worried I might be 1 short from making that hat? Well, turns out I wasn't 1 short. I was 21 short. There are no words. To make myself feel better, I set some of the key fruit to become wine and jam, then headed into town and sold the rest to Pierre for a whopping 477 gold. Oh well, at least Mr. Key won't be getting them for his stupid quest. Something had to go right for me today, so I headed again to the quarry mines to kill haunted skulls, and managed to get the prehistoric skull. Now only the ancient sword to go for both the museum collection and the 7 star drops spot. It was raining and I wanted to cook more spicy eel, so I hung out on the dock fishing the night away. Winter 1st, year 2, and we are closing in swiftly on 200 days. That morning I made a hat that was actually more disturbing than the key fruit hat. Then I made more clothes with anything else I had laying about and placed them in the dresser. I'm fairly certain I have over the 50 hats needed for the bingo spot at this point, but I will be doing a final count on the last day of the challenge, so we'll wait until then to check. My only missing artifact was the ancient sword, so I checked for artifact spots in the mountain. Then I snagged a fishing quest from the orders board and asked Clint to open some troves, but the sword was not inside any of them. Next, I gave Pam the battery she'd mailed me the other day, before heading to the island to check the perfection tracker. At some point, I had collected all of the walnuts, and I'm not sure when it was, so we'll just mark that off now. I picked the Keys Cuisine quest, so I see a lot of cooking in my future. And this would include my final cooking recipe for the bingo spot, so I headed back to the valley to fish up a lovely squid or two. I hate to admit, but I forgot it was Krobus' birthday until it was rather late, so I bought a void egg from him to gift him, and that smile was worth the 5,000 gold. On day 198, the cask wine was ready, and I had switched my farming profession back to artisan, so tonight should be a great payday. I was only missing the year 2 Queen of Sauce recipes, so after I made my fried calamari, I could check the cooking spot off my bingo card. And since I was already cooking, I started to work on the key quest by cooking over 100 tropical curry. Then, while out looking for artifact spots in the mountains, I shimmy searched up my luckiest haul ever as it contained not only a diamond, but a lucky ring. That night was spent fishing on Ginger Island in the hopes of finding the final artifact in the treasure chest, which I finally did! That day I'd cooked so much that my key quest sales actually made more than the wine. I crafted up even more clothes on day 199 to feed my sewing addiction, then sold one of my excess sheep so there would be enough space in the barn for the additional brown and white cows needed for the Noah's Ark bingo spot. I did the same in the coop with one of the brown chickens, as I would need another blue and white in their place. Then raced over to the museum with my fingers crossed that I hadn't missed any donations. And I hadn't, as we earned the complete collection achievement. As reward, I received the 7th and final star drop. And now for the livestock montage. Welcome in Cheese, Ray, Belle, and Moon. I spent the rest of the day cooking for Key's quest, and while picking up supplies at Pierre's, I noticed he had almost 300 of the key fruit I sold him in stock. Here's hoping I get the key fruit quest again soon so that I can buy them back and have a big leg up on that challenge. After the previous night's shipment, I have a little over 5,000 worth of cuisine left to cook, but I have 11 days, so that will not be the focus of this final day. No, today, I think I will finally tackle my greatest nemesis. Gus was heading to the island, so I would have the saloon to myself. I'd have 4 bingo rows completed if I could pull this off, so I psyched myself up the best I could. Then, yeah, this isn't happening. At least no one was here to witness my embarrassment. I spent the rest of the day cleaning up another of my embarrassments, the state of my house. Haley and I will no longer be sleeping in the living room as I set us up with a proper bedroom. And I managed to get a 4th bingo row after all, as a quick count found I had 53 unique hats. 54 if you count the copper pan. Well, the 200 days are officially over, and I've got to say, I'm rather proud of how much we were able to accomplish. We reached 73% completion on the perfection tracker, though most of the remaining goals require a lot of gold to achieve. We'd earned almost 2 million gold by the end of 200 days. But I know I'm not the best at profit optimization, so it could take me a few years in-game to earn the 13 million needed for the obelisks and clock combined if I'm not careful. And that brings us to our third challenge of the series. We are starting off with a fresh bingo card that I will be attempting to complete within the 100-day time limit. Since we are in year 2, the main objective and center bingo square of this challenge will be the daunting task of achieving perfection and reaching that game culminating cutscene at the summit. I will be able to achieve bingo without reaching perfection in this 100 days, and a lot of the bingo spots on the card are stepping stones to this ultimate goal or standard achievements in the game. Some of the other spots include a goal to get hit by a train, have a completely full slime hutch, and never fail to gift a villager on their birthday. The boxes with the green text are essentially free to mark off until I fail them, and then they are gone for good. So if I hook a fish but can't reel it in, bye bye bingo spot. Will I be able to reach bingo and or perfection during this challenge, or will the next 100 days be a complete train wreck? We are starting off our new challenge on day 201, and in true Haley fashion, she called me hot stuff, but she also let me know our adoption papers were in progress, so it was only a matter of time before our second little hat rack would arrive, and I'd get the full house achievement, potentially marking off my first bingo spot of the challenge. I had a lot of work to do if I wanted to make enough money to reach perfection by the end of the challenge, so I set to work organizing chests and seeing how many kegs and preserve jars I could make, which wasn't many. So I made what I could and crafted a few more furnaces for the bars needed to craft kegs. Then I filled the preserve jars I'd made with blueberries. These would eventually be housed in a shed, but for now I have them on my secondary field. I checked in with Bingo and he wished me good luck on the new challenges before heading off to Robin's for the shed I'd mentioned to house those preserve jars. Next, I stopped into Pierre's to pick up some wheat flour for the last few recipes and saw that he still had a good chunk of key fruit in stock. I wonder how long those will keep. Continuing my shopping spree, I stopped in to see Gus and purchased some salads and coffee, and spent the rest of that evening planting winter seeds, taking a quick break to stop by the sewers to reset my mining skills, and completely forgetting to pick up an iridium sprinkler from Krobus since it was Friday. Maybe next week. That night, I selected the miner and prospector professions to aid in resource collection for jars and kegs. Most of day 202 I spent smelting ore and crafting kegs. I didn't want these new kegs to be off sync with the ones already in the shed, so I placed them inside to brew up some coffee in the meantime. Along with the coffee I'd bought yesterday from Gus, I made a few freshly brewed triple shot espressos to finish up the Keys Cuisine quest I'd started working on during the previous 100 days. Then began the tedious process of organizing chests and shipping crops needed for the polyculture and monoculture achievements. I was missing several of the polyculture crops, but was able to ship enough cranberries that I should be awarded the monoculture achievement. Overnight, I reset my foraging profession to forester and earned the monoculture achievement, checking off my first official bingo spot of this challenge. Sunday morning brought about a new recipe, so I baked up a poppy seed muffin and brewed myself a triple shot espresso. You know, that actually sounds like a pretty good breakfast. I wanted to head to the island today, but it was Caroline's birthday and I didn't want to lose completion of the birthday bingo square, so I brought her a morning cup of tea, then headed to Willie's for a quick cruise over to the island. Once there, I harvested any waiting crops before traveling to the forge for my very first tool enchant. I was hoping for the shaving enchant on my axe for extra wood and got efficient. Guess I would have to try again once I get enough cinder shards. Even without the shaving enchant, I set to work chopping trees I'd planted in front of the walnut room for that much needed resource. Then headed inside to grab the key to the town. Getting inside houses outside of their normal hours would be important if I wanted to keep my birthday bingo spot alive throughout the entire challenge. I also picked up Pierre's missing stock list while I was there and had the coin to spend. The rest of the night was spent planting crops and chopping down even more trees around the island. I'd planned to stay the night on the island to check Key's quest board on Monday's reset, so I headed to bed, only to find I had yet again left Haley solo when our new child was delivered. Whoops. I named our new baby boy Ale, short for Alejandro, thanks to a really clever comment left by Hernan Torres. So now we have Ginger Ale, and I can mark off another bingo spot with the awarding of the Full House achievement. Even more crops were ready the next morning, so after picking them, I placed down another cheeky little batch of ancient fruit with the sprinklers I'd brought. Then it was time to check the available quests. I didn't want to cook again, and I was worried about my fishing bingo spot if I were to pick up the extended family quest, so I decided to pass on both. Next, I loaded up my pack and headed home, just in time for the Festival of Ice. I debated skipping the festival in favor of resource collection, but I just can't pass up a good fishing competition. Once back home, I collected wine and refilled kegs, even managing to get my jar collection started in the newly constructed preserve shed. On day 205, I went to check on our new baby Ale, and he gave me the cold shoulder. It was a good luck day, so I made an impulsive decision to head to Skull Cavern. I realized I hadn't checked the special orders board the night before, so I rode over to the board and picked up Robin's Resource Rush. Then I warped on over to the desert. After downing a triple shot and munching on some candy, I made my way into the cave. I found my first iridium node on floor 11, so I took that as a good sign. My goal today was to collect as much iridium as possible while attempting to tackle the level 100 Skull Cavern bingo spot. I had brought staircases with me, but was hoping to make it down without using them for that special dialogue. I found my first treasure room on floor 15, then another on floor 35, and a third on floor 56. I was making okay time and had yet to use any staircases, so I was feeling pretty good. Around 7 p.m., there was a shaft that dropped me 13 levels right into a treasure room on floor 74. And I reached my final treasure room on floor 94 around 11:30 that night. It was pretty late when I reached floor 99, so I started bombing the heck out of it to make sure I reached that final floor in time without using a staircase. And we made it, even getting the honorable dialogue for my first time ever. Proud of my achievements, I warped myself home and threw some iridium ore on to be smelted before heading off for some much needed rest, only to hear some strange and spooky noises coming from outside in the dark of night. Wednesday morning, I found Ginger hanging out in the fish tank room. So cute. Then discovered the source of the strange noises I'd heard last night. Did you invite your friends over? I'm watching you. I figured I might as well ask Robin to start building the final shed while I had the resources, since I was already up in the area to bring Sebastian a frozen tear for his birthday. I wanted to take a quick trip to the desert to search for coconuts and buy some starfruit seeds, but Pam seemed to be taking the day off. So I spent the evening collecting stone in the normal mine. Day 207, I picked up a help wanted quest for Linus and used the key to the town to enter Pierre's shop early to hand over his stock list. Next, I brought Magnus the iridium bar he requested, considered a trip to the desert, but Pam was MIA for the second day in a row, so I dropped Linus by his frozen tear and headed back into the mines for stone. Not what I wanted to do with my day, but it wasn't a total waste as I was able to finish up the Dougie's monster slaying goal and collected a hard hat from Gil as reward. Friday morning, Haley decided to change the color of part of the floor and Ginger was watching the fishies again. My winter seeds were ready, so I harvested them and replanted the fields around the Jutamo hut. Pam was missing from the bus stop, again, for the third day straight. If this wasn't a game, I would definitely go check on her at this point, but as it was, this was just super frustrating. Luckily, I still had a desert warp totem handy, so I grabbed it and made my way over to grab some coconuts needed for the obelisk, and a few more warp totems so that I would not be so dependent on Pam's chaotic whims. I bought starfruit, beets, and rhubarb seeds from Sandy. Then I spent a bit of time in the casino to buy hardwood fences for use on my farm, and collected more wood before making my way back to the valley to run about the mines until I had collected the final stone for Robin's quest. Then made some jars with my newly acquired resources. I also remembered to replace the floor Haley had changed and set up the front room with a little winter spirit, and I do mean a little. But I was so busy decorating that I forgot to buy the sprinkler from Krobus for the second Friday in a row. The spirits were so happy the next morning that I thought I should take advantage of their mood and jet off to the desert for the day. My main goal of the cavern today was collecting more iridium ore, and I finally used the zoom feature to help me with this endeavor. I ran into a dino room on floor 60, which was helpful for working on my monster slaying goals. But there was not too much more to report except that I found a cheeky crystallarium on floor 67, and then was immediately ambushed as I entered the next floor. Oh my gosh, I'm not scared, you're scared. I made it back that night with my shiny new crystallarium and nearly 100 iridium ore. Not great, but honestly not a bad haul for me. After the excitement of the mines yesterday, I wanted to take today a little easier. Plus, the spirits were in bad humor. So I brewed up a cup of coffee for Harvey's birthday and made my way into town. Apparently Pam was now off her bender and back to the bus. But too little too late, Pam. I will not be using your services again, hopefully. Once at Harvey's, I learned that he was really unsatisfied with his life, and I felt a little bad for him if I'm being honest. I was wholly out of wood, so I ran about the valley chopping any tree I saw, then commissioned a second barn to get started on my Piggy Paradise bingo spot, which will require me to have 2 deluxe barns full of pigs in their own designated area for completion of that goal. I spent the rest of the day replacing broken down wooden fences with hardwood fences from the casino, and clearing out the area that would eventually house all my truffle-seeking piggies. On day 211, after saying goodbye to my lovely ladies, I crafted some iridium sprinklers and brought these along with a mass of seeds over to Ginger Island. It was raining, so today was the perfect time to set up more crops as I had quite a bit of unused space. I even opted to forgo the night market as I wanted to plant as much as possible by the end of the day. I planted a large quantity of starfruit along with most of the seeds needed for the polyculture achievement. If my calculations are right, once these crops are grown, I would only be missing a few yams and I could purchase the seeds from Pierre thanks to the expanded stock list I'd picked up previously. I woke up on the island the next morning and tried to gussy up the fields a bit, then chopped a bit of much needed wood before checking the available key quests. Seriously? These 2 again? Thanks, but no thanks. Back in the valley that evening, I checked my obelisk materials chest and saw I now had all the coconuts and cactus fruit needed to craft the desert obelisk. This was the first obelisk on my build list, as soon as I had a spare 20 iridium bars and 1 million gold. No biggie. Later, I headed down to the night market, but only bought the cone hat and the available painting that I placed into the spare room I wanted to eventually turn into a playroom for the kiddos. On day 213, Haley asked if I had any plans for the day, and boy did I ever. Robin had finished construction on the second barn overnight, and I wanted to buy a good amount of pigs in time for them to be grown by spring, so I did something fairly controversial. I sold off all my other barn animals. I kept some ostrich eggs just in case, but minimizing the animals on my farm would simplify things for me quite a bit. That afternoon, I headed up to Robin's to buy a large amount of wood that I used to craft 400 tea saplings, and then proceeded to spend an obscene amount of money on more wood and some stone. I headed into town to sell the 400 tea saplings to Pierre in order to recoup some money from my earlier spending, before dropping by to see Clint about some coal. Wood, stone, coal, I think you know where this is going. So now my sheds are full of kegs and jars, until I upgrade them, that is. Oh, and I stopped by Robin's to move my coop over near the lake and upgrade my newly built barn. Remembered to gift Magnus a purple mushroom for his birthday, and bought some yam seeds from the night market along with Lupini's painting that I placed in the bedroom for Ginger and Ale to enjoy. The next morning, the spirits were very happy, so I thought it'd be a great opportunity to head to the island volcano in search of the final dragon teeth needed for the obelisk. I found 1 in that entire day, which was rather upsetting. But a quest request the next morning put me in a better mood. Gus asked for a coconut to make a Coco No-No, and for some reason, that drink name gave me the giggles. At least I'm assuming it's a drink. I picked the garlic growing on the island and replanted the area with the yams, which would be the final crop needed to ship for the polyculture achievement. Once back on the farm, I picked all of the winter forageables before heading down to Marnie's. Today was the last day I could buy pigs for them to be adults come spring, so I welcomed in Shoshu, Chocha, Tierdo, Tumli, Sessa, Gucho, Bruce, Kappa, Gemli, Butcha, and Subby, to remind you to subscribe if you're enjoying the video. We are up to 13 of the 24 total pigs needed if you're counting along at home. It was Friday, so I grabbed an iridium sprinkler from Krobus, brought Gus the coconut he needed, then made over 400 winter seeds that I replanted around the Junimo hut. That night, I made the tough decision to sell all my chickens, so we are officially down to only ducks, rabbits, pigs, and dinosaurs on the farm. Speaking of dinos, a new baby named Wubba hatched that night. Evelyn's birthday was on day 216, and she sent me some cookies in the mail, so I wanted to be sure to gift her something good today. It was at this point that I decided not only would I need to gift everyone on their birthdays for the birthday bingo spot, but that it would need to be a loved gift, because why not? But first, I took to the mines for most of the day. I think I was farming for ores and coal, but honestly, can't remember. On floor 87, a helpful slime dropped a diamond, and this reminded me I'd better head over to gift Evelyn for her birthday before it got too late. She wasn't at home. But I managed to catch Evelyn heading out from the community center and gifted her the newly acquired slime diamond. I spent the rest of the night restocking preserve jars and placing fencing around my southern farm coops. Little Ale was finally alert on the morning of day 217, so I gave him a toss before checking the telly for the bruschetta recipe needed to complete the cooking achievement. I made the bruschetta straight away, and now we are only a week out from learning that final dish. After some basic farm chores, I took a trip to the desert since it was Sunday and I could trade in my jade. I also wanted to pick up a large quantity of starfruit seeds from Sandy to drop off on Ginger Island for replanting when the latest batch of crops were ready. Then it was back to the volcano in search of those dragon teeth. The next morning it was Monday and I was still on the island, so I headed up to see what quest Key had in store. I was still hesitant to fish, so I selected the Danger in the Deep quest before loading up my pack and heading back to the valley, where I kegged some of my ancient fruit, then checked the special orders board in town. But Demetrius had commandeered it with his stinky fishing quest. Dude, haven't you heard? I'm on a fishing hiatus. I spent the rest of the night making a little progress in the danger mines. The next morning it was jelly time again, so after taking care of that, I stopped in to give Leah a salad for her birthday, picked up a help wanted quest from Clint, then headed back to the danger mines for more level progression. Oh my gosh, I hate these squid mobs so much. But I made it to level 35 before calling it for the night. Wednesday morning, I wanted to continue filling my pig barns, so I headed to Marnie's and was relieved to see she was actually working today. I welcomed Groose, Pro, Granny, Juko, Senna, Partu, and Tupi into the drift. My barns were now at capacity with a total of 20 pigs, and if I wanted to hit my Piggy Paradise goal of 24 pigs, I would need some help from our fiery local carpenter. But before I visited Robin, I stopped in to see Clint as I had totally neglected upgrading my trash can this entire run. Then I was off to commission the final barn upgrade for my drove of pigs, and then back to the danger mines to see how far I could dive tonight. These green floors are so pretty, but those spiders, eek. I returned home early that night, so I worked on a playroom for the kiddos before heading to bed. Day 221 found us celebrating the Feast of the Winter Star for the second time this playthrough, and today my secret friend was Linus, so I gave him a yummy blueberry tart before accepting a gift from Willie. Anyone else having a slight feeling of deja vu? At least Ginger was able to come see the big tree with Haley and I this year. Once back home, I refilled all the preserve jars with blueberries before it got too late. What a lovely day! My final batch of winter seeds was ready the next morning, so after collecting those, I made my way down to the sewers for my customary Friday sprinkler from Clovis, caught Clint on his way into the community center for a birthday topaz, then spent the day diving in the danger mine, and reached level 90 before heading home for the night. I didn't have much going on the next day and really wanted to finish the Danger in the Deep quest, so I made my way first thing to the mines on day 223. And was able to reach the bottom at exactly 4:20 that evening. I spent the rest of that night working on the farm in the hopes of getting it ready for spring. It's the final day of year 2, and that means the final cooking recipe can now be obtained. Here's hoping I saved the ingredients needed to make shrimp cocktail. Survey says yes, and that lovely sound means we have officially earned the Gourmet Chef achievement. That morning, I spent time harvesting the greenhouse, planting starter grass for the new season tomorrow, and watching a new duckling Licardo hatch. I also stopped by Marnie's for the 4 final pigs needed to fill up both deluxe barns. Welcome to the farm, little Snotchy, Chess, Furtu, and Gumbus. It was Sunday, so I took my traditional trip over to the island to be there to check the Walnut Room quest the next morning. And while there, I made sure to harvest and replant crops as needed, and shimmy searched the river at the dig site for materials. The next morning was the start of year 3 and that infamous visit from Grandpa. I wasn't certain if he'd find me over on the island, but sure enough, he arrived right on cue. Though I will have to wait until I head back to the valley to find out how many candles are lit. What do you think? Did we make Grandpa proud? Before I made my way to the walnut room, I had a bit of harvesting to do since, if I counted correctly, my final crops for the polyculture shipping achievement were ready. Once in the walnut room, I decided to pick up Key's kindness quest since I was still boycotting fishing quests, but really needed those key gems for some final recipes. And now, for the moment of truth as we head back to the farm. We got all 4 candles from Grandpa! That morning, I set my pigs free for the first time in their new private piggy paradise. Now get me those truffles. Next, I gifted Sandy the first loved gift for Key's quest while in the desert to pick up more rhubarb seeds to plant for spring. I spent the rest of the day planting my rhubarb around the Junimo hut and refilling my kegs and preserve jars for a lovely payday. I woke up the next morning to find I had counted correctly and was now able to mark off the polyculture achievement on my bingo card. I had a fruit salad I knew Haley would love, and I was curious if gifting your spouse counted for the Key's kindness quest, since you can give them more than the standard 2 gifts a week. My first batch of truffles was ready to collect, and I finally remembered to check Grandpa's shrine for my statue of perfection. This little cutie will give me iridium ore daily. Then I headed to the Wizard's Tower to build a second Junimo hut and kick off my loved gifting spree for Key. What a long day. But it's not over yet, as I spent the evening working on field setup around the latest Junimo hut. I started off day 227 by gifting a coconut to my lovely wife, then planted strawberries in the field I'll be calling Junimo 1. And yes, I know it's the second hut built, but it's on the left and has the more optimal sprinkler setup. Next, I filled up my pack and headed out for day 2 of gifting. Once back at home, I made sure to clean up the bottom right corner of the farm where I intended to place a slime hutch in the near future. Day 228 was Kent's birthday, so I grabbed some roasted hazelnuts to do double duty as both a birthday present and one of the remaining loved gifts for Key's kindness quest. Only 1 gift left to go, so I gave Robin a peach to finish up the Key quest. Then made my request to have a slime hutch built near my southern coops. Next, I headed to the island to harvest a few crops and pick up the final walnut room recipe with my newly acquired key gems. The next day, I went to the desert to purchase more starfruit seeds and chop down a few of the trees I'd planted there before making my customary Friday trip to see Krobus, worked on farm pathing, and made a few dozen tea saplings for a mini cast infusion. On Saturday, I finally remembered to take down the tree since it was no longer winter. And because it was a relatively good luck day, I wanted to take a trip to Skull Cavern. Marlin caught me on my way out the door though, and gave me a green slime egg for my new hutch, which I will deposit in the incubator later, because it was desert time. And while there, I picked up the recipe for the desert warp totem, then started the dive in search of iridium. I managed to reach floor 86 and collected over 80 iridium ore before heading home, but surprisingly had no treasure rooms the entire day. Sunday was another good luck day, so my goal was to head back to the caverns. But first, I needed to restock the preserve jars and bring Lewis a pepper for his birthday. So it was 11 o'clock before I made my way inside the caves. And for my first treasure room of the day, a blue cowboy hat. Did I say first? I meant only. My only treasure room for the day. But we did collect another 16 bars worth of iridium ore. Another Happy Spirits Day means another trip to the desert, and at least the treasure room seemed a bit more plentiful. Triple the rooms from yesterday, in fact. I even found a Pepper Rex floor to help work on my monster slaying goals. Day 233 was another good humor day, but 3 days in a row in Skull Cavern is apparently my limit, as I opted to clear out the piggy truffle traffic jam over by the gate. Good morning, Bruce. Then worked on setting up the slime hutch a bit. That afternoon, I checked in on Pierre's to see if he had any of the key fruit left, but he was down to 2 pieces, so picking up that quest again was looking a little bleak. I did pick up the Gifts for George quest before heading to the island to fill in the remaining space with more starfruit crops. The next morning, I headed out to find Vincent for his birthday and stumbled upon him and Jas with a dancing onion. Then found him for real starting class with Miss Penny in the library to gift him a birthday grape. I had been crafting kegs as materials became available, so I asked Robin to upgrade Wine Shed 1, which cost a lot of wood, so I headed back over to the desert to refill my reserves. And while there, I picked up enough rhubarb seeds to replant Ginoma Field 2. That night, I wanted to make things easier on myself, so I changed my foraging profession back to botanist so that all of my future truffles would be iridium quality. So now I can toss my truffles directly into the shipping bin without feeling like I'm missing out on a good deal of profit. Oh, good morning, Bruce. I had a crafting recipe that required marble, so I took some geodes over to Clint for processing. And lo and behold, he found one in a frozen geode. While looking for leeks in the forest later that afternoon, I came across a trash panda asking for a wild horseradish, which I happen to have on me. Next, he wanted a smallmouth bass, which I was able to deliver after rummaging through some chests. Fried calamari was the next request, so I whipped one up before grabbing him the final requested item of algae soup. That trash panda was such a cutie, but he ended up monopolizing my entire afternoon. Then I monopolized my evening working on crafting recipes. Friday morning, I decided to change up my look by spilling some Joja Cola onto the sewing machine. Not too much else to report on this day, except that I moved some preserve jars closer to the fish ponds for ease of access. On Saturday morning, I started working on the southern field, as I would be using this area to plant starfruit come summer. Then I headed into town for the Egg Festival to win the egg hunt for the 3rd year in a row. Though, if I'm being honest, my main goal was seeing Ginger running about the festival. She's hiding. Back at home, I moved the chest containing my processing produce closer to the sheds, again for ease of access. On day 238, the rhubarbs were ready to harvest, but since it was raining, the Junimos were taking the day off, and I did the harvest myself. Once my morning farm chores were completed, I brought Haley her customary birthday gift, then stopped over to have Clint upgrade my hoe, added more kegs to my newly upgraded shed, and dropped by the island farm to replant any harvestable starfruit. Waking up on the island Monday morning meant a check of the Walnut Room quest, but I decided to pass on both. On the way out of Key's room, I went to fight the tiger slimes on the hill and was rewarded with 2 tiger slime eggs. Back home that night, I switched out Ginger's fedora for a new hair clip since it was technically her birthday, and that was the only present I could give. Before heading to bed that night, I planted a fairy rose in the empty garden pot, as I would need the flower to craft one of the recipes needed for perfection. Let's hope I remember to water it. On day 240, I set aside the iridium bars needed for all 4 obelisks, so now all we're waiting on is funding. Just a cool 3 million needed, no biggie. The slime incubator was empty, so I added one of my new tiger slime eggs, as these are the most profitable of slimes to breed. Then headed to pick up my hoe from Clint and had him start working on my final watering can upgrade. A quick check of the monster eradication goals showed I was getting pretty close to becoming a slime slayer, and I really wanted that ring for slime hutch safety, so I headed into the mines in search of our wobbly friends. Though I gave up on that goal fairly early in exchange for searching the forest for leeks for George and the locationally convenient salmonberry. The next morning, I found Ginger pretending to be one of her dolls. Isn't she so cute? I didn't do much worth mentioning today except plant a rare seed in the greenhouse and rode around the valley on the look out for more leeks. Day 242, my watering can was ready, so I picked it up and requested my trash can be upgraded next. Then asked Robin to upgrade jar shed number 1, before making my way to the bus stop to gift Pam a parsnip for her birthday on my way to the desert for some starfruit seeds and an afternoon cave dive. The spirits were in good humor the next day, and I had over 1 million gold burning a hole in my pocket, so I decided today would be the day I'd do it. Today, I would build my very first obelisk, the desert obelisk. Sorry Pam, but you burned me one too many times. Now for my maiden voyage, and into the cavern for another afternoon dive. That night, I ran into a dino floor, but didn't stick around the desert too long as I had truffles ready for collection. I'd been unlucky trying to find the leeks needed for George in the wild, so the next morning I planted a batch of spring seeds that would be ready right before the end of the season. It was Shane's birthday, so I made sure to bring him a hot pepper, then spent most of the evening doing a little deforestation by the river to craft the 39 kegs needed to fill out wine shed number 1. The next morning, I refilled my wine shed with starfruit and ancient fruit, then spent some time getting my southern fields ready for summer for the rest of the day. But I did realize it was Sunday later that night, and I made it to the desert to trade in my extra jade for staircases. Monday morning was a good luck day, so I headed to Skull Cavern, straight into an infested floor 1. I didn't even know that was possible. That afternoon, I fell into my first treasure room on floor 41, but headed home fairly early that evening to say goodnight to my truffle-loving piggies and ship off some freshly crafted tea saplings. The next morning was raining, so I harvested the strawberries in my Junimo field and wished the piggies good morning before jarring the freshly picked strawberries, then headed to the Wizard's Tower for my main objective of the day, building the island obelisk, which I used to make my way to the island for additional harvesting. I made sure to lay down deluxe speed grow as I was looking to ramp up my starfruit production, and also carefully removed some strawberries to replace with starfruit as I had over 10 million gold to make and only a few weeks left to do it. Before I headed home for the night, I wanted to enchant my weapon at the forge. I was hoping for a Crusader to aid in monster slaying goals, as this would allow me to down mummies without the use of bombs. And survey says, nope, artful. Okay, let's try this again. And we got Crusader on the second attempt. I even had enough cinder shards left over to toss some random enchants on my sword using a diamond. On the day of the flower dance, I spent the morning harvesting the greenhouse, then headed down to the fairgrounds with Haley and Ginger. And now the dance has started. See me standing in the corner? Is this because I wanted to keep Ginger company during the dance, or did I forget to ask for a dance partner? I guess we'll never know. Though I am low-key sad that Ginger is nowhere to be seen during the dance itself. That night, the witch was also in a festive mood, as she threw her own dance party in my lizard coop. Day 249 was the final Thursday before summer, so I stopped in to see Sandy and stock up on deluxe speed grow. I may have mentioned this during my 200-day challenge, but Sandy sells deluxe speed grow for 80 gold, but only on Thursday. If you're in a pinch, you can buy it from Pierre any other day, but he charges nearly double what Sandy does. Come on now, Pierre. Since I was already in the desert, I headed into the cavern and was able to work on my Pepper Rex monster slaying goal, and tested out my new weapon enchant on some mummies. I headed home in time to refill preserve jars, then had a visitor for the second night in a row, this time in the form of an owl friend. Perfect timing to hoot in the halfway point of the challenge. The next morning, I went to check in on my dino coop, and for a brief moment wondered if the wizard's ex had gifted me a dark dino, but the witch had only dropped off a void egg. The new dino was from the incubator. We also had a duck named Zella hatch in the duck and bunny coop. It was Pierre's birthday, so I headed on down to his shop, only to find he had taken the day off. No shade from me for choosing a beach day birthday with the boys. While on the island, I picked up a few more lucky tiger slime eggs, before heading home to clean up the truffle bounty my pigs had been working on the past couple days. I found Bingo mimicking the owl statue in the southern field, then spent the evening setting up the final pathing to the south. Saturday was Emily's birthday, so I brought her a topaz first thing that morning, before heading to see Clint about a trash can. Fun fact, Clint often stands behind his desk for hours before he opens, so the key to the town allows you to use his services before 9 a.m. My spring forage had grown, so I would be able to finish up the quest for Evelyn today, so I plopped the leeks into the oven, hoping George didn't notice from mere feet away. Then I spent the afternoon harvesting starfruit on the island that I would use to refill the kegs in my wine sheds. I'd saved a few of the wine to place in casks in the basement the next morning, and found a little thank you from Evelyn for the leeks in the form of a coffee maker. Very nice. That afternoon, I refilled my preserve jars with rhubarb before heading to the desert to spend a small fortune on the first round of starfruit for the start of the summer season tomorrow. Bright and early on the first day of summer, I downed a crab cake and some espresso, then dashed out to start my busy day hoeing and watering the field. It was evening by the time I started planting all my starfruit along with a healthy dose of deluxe speed grow. Fun fact, while you could typically get 2 harvests of starfruit by planting in the valley during summer, adding deluxe speed grow allows for 3 harvests if planted on the first. I managed to finish planting all 4 fields and made a mad dash for the door, only to pass out right on the doorstep. officially losing access to the Don't Pass Out bingo spot for the remainder of the challenge. Haley made me an omelet the next morning to help recoup my strength, and apparently Marlin was the one who found me last night, though not sure how I ended up in the mud. A quick survey of my fields showed I missed planting in 2 spots, but 2 out of 664 plots isn't too bad, I suppose. That morning, I added another tiger slime egg to the incubator, collected oak resin from my island farm, and picked up the Skull Cavern Invasion quest as I was feeling particularly overzealous on that day. Checking the perfection tracker, I was up to 77% completion, but I still had a few goals that had nothing to do with perfection, like upgrading tools to Iridium. So I placed my final trash can order with Clint just before closing time. On day 255, a batch of jelly was ready, and it was then I realized I couldn't buy coal for more jars as Clint was working on my trash can. So I refilled my available jars with starfruit and any other produce I had in my jarring chest. The next morning, I dropped off some pink cake for Jas's birthday, before stopping to see Sandy about some starfruit seeds that I used to replant the island field. Next, I dipped my toes into the spooky Skull Cavern, and while there, managed to finish the Slime Slayer goal, which seemed like plenty of progress for the day. Speaking of monster slaying progress, look at all those completed goals. Still ignoring the second page, please. With my newly acquired slime charmer ring, I headed into the slime hutch the next morning, but decided not to tangle with my slimes on this occasion, opting to place another tiger slime egg into the incubator. Then spent the afternoon in the mines farming for coal and ores, until I remembered my trash can upgrade was completed, so I raced over to Clint, only to get there at exactly 4 p.m. and use my town key to enter. Gotta love those after hours to pick up my trash can, which was the final Iridium tool upgrade. I also bought copious amounts of coal while at Clint's before heading to Robin's for more wood and stone. Wood, stone, coal? I think you know where this is going. Again. I also upgraded my final shed so that I could eventually have a total of 274 kegs and jars inside the respective sheds. That night, I started filling up Preserve Shed 1 with my newly crafted jars, though it was getting late, so I would have to finish up in the morning. I was back in the shed first thing the next morning to place and fill all the jars, then turned my attention to Wine Shed 2 to fill in a few more gaps in the layout. It took me most of the day to situate my sheds, but they were now filled and under control, for the time being. Ale was toddling about for the first time on day 259. And Haley reminded me I had a task that needed completed today, as my potted fairy rose had finished growing. So I plucked it, and headed outside to grab the diamond needed to craft my final recipe. And with that, the Craftmaster achievement is mine, and with it I am able to mark off the final bingo spot needed for bingo! We did it! Bingo was achieved on the 7th of summer. See, I told you 7 was my favorite number. But now we are at a bit of a crossroads. During my 200 days challenge, I only had about 20 days left when I reached bingo, so I thought it made sense to finish out the 100 days. But for the 300 days, we have over 40 days left, almost half the total challenge remaining. So I started thinking, what was the most important thing to me in this playthrough? And in the end, it all came back to my most vital central bingo spot. I want to reach perfection. So the rest of this video will be me attempting to do just that, no matter how many in-game days it takes. For a better idea of how I'll make money over the next few weeks, let's turn now to the Wheel of Profit. Farming is my main source of income while attempting to raise funds to purchase the golden clock. Over the summer, I will have my farm bursting to the brim with 3 batches of starfruit thanks to the boost from Deluxe Speed Grow. Those nearly 2,000 starfruit will be crammed ceremoniously into a keg for maximum profit. More on that later. For fall, I will be planting the amazing artichoke on the majority of my valley farm. And my reasons for this are bountiful. First off, artichoke seeds are pretty cheap, but they yield high profits when pickled, meaning I can fill up my fields without breaking the bank, then rake in the dough in a few weeks' time. Second, artichoke are a single yield crop, so I can use speed grow to either grant a few extra harvests or afford myself an extra day for planting, since I don't want to run into that time crunch I felt in the previous season. And lastly, my kegs would presumably be filled with starfruit, so I want a fall crop that keeps my jars churning. And for that, the artichoke is king of the profit crop, as they will produce more harvest than pumpkins per plot. On my island farm, I'll leave my lovely ancient fruit alone, but will be replacing all my strawberries with, you guessed it, more speed grow starfruit. For the most part, I will be turning my ancient fruit and starfruit into wine, and jarring any other available produce into jelly or pickles. I'll also be utilizing the casks in my cellar to bump up the profit of some of my wine, though I will only be letting them hit gold star quality due to time constraint. While selling truffles technically falls under the other category, I am considering them forageables for the sake of this breakdown. I have 24 precocious piggies, and due to the botanist profession, all of their truffle finds will be iridium quality. Instead of spending time turning these truffles into oil, I will be selling them outright for $12.50 a pop. Meaning on any day it's not raining, I will be raking in around 30,000 gold in passive income, which can really add up. I was so worried about losing my fail at fishing bingo spot that I have been avoiding fishing at all costs. But now that I achieved bingo, I can throw caution to the wind and fish to my heart's content. And while I will not be spending my days fishing, I will be picking up any legendary fishing quests offered up by Mr. Key, as these fish fetch a pretty penny and you can catch more than one while the quest is active. I don't think I'm good enough at skull cavern diving to muster up a massive amount of iridium ore for bar profits, but there is an ore type that is actually worth 3 times that of iridium, and that is radioactive ore. This can be easily collected by setting the mines to danger mode and floor farming on a good luck day. Changing your profession to blacksmith will then net 4,500 gold per radioactive bar. Imagine dragging that. Last but not least, we turn to the other category that technically includes the before mentioned truffle, but also contains the lucrative tea sapling. I'd spent most of my time in the valley stocking up a supply of wild seasonal seeds and planting a little area with fiber. So I was set to rake in 500 gold per sapling after doing a bit of deforestation. During the second week of summer, I continued my birthday bingo spot success by gifting Gus an orange on Monday, Maru a strawberry on Wednesday, and Alex a salmon dinner on Saturday. While waiting around near Maru's house on her birthday, I was fortunate enough to hear the blessed whistle of the train, and managed to get myself hit by that most lucky of locomotive, checking off yet another bingo spot. For the rest of the week, I completed the Void Spirits Monster Slayer goal, worked on jars for my preserve shed, and spent some quality time with the kiddos. There was a lot going on the third week of summer, so let's get right into it. On Monday night, I hit the 10 million achievement and managed to mark that off my list. Then Tuesday, I finished off the Monster Slayer quest for the serpents, the mummies, thanks to my sword's wonderful Crusader enchantment, and the Pepper Rex, all in fairly quick succession. By the end of the week, I'd managed to slay my final Magma Sprite as well, fully completing all monster eradication goals. The birthday bingo spot continued on Wednesday when I brought Sam a cactus fruit, then Friday when I brought a strawberry to Demetrius. I fully filled out both my wine and preserve sheds on Thursday that week. And speaking of full, at some point during the week my hutch had become full, so we'll just mark that bingo spot off as well. The final week of summer saw me continuing my birthday gift bestowal to the dwarf on Monday, Willie on Wednesday, and Leo on Friday. Aside from that, the main day worth mentioning was Tuesday, and boy was it a doozy, as I decided it was the day I'd finish my obelisk collection and mark off that bingo spot. Followed quickly by losing my fail fishing bingo spot as I attempted to reel in the legendary glacier fish too. Easy come, easy go, I suppose. In the first week of fall, Tuesday was yet again the busiest day of the week, as I was a busy little beaver and finally finished the Big Help achievement. I handed out a birthday gift to Penny that same day, then another to Elliot on Friday. And while it wasn't technically his birthday, I decided to pop a hat on Ale so that he wasn't left out. Week 2 of fall saw a slow start, but it really picked up speed as towards the end of the week, I managed to rake in enough funds to purchase the golden clock. But before I do that, I have a few missing statues that need collecting, enabling me to mark off that particular bingo spot on Wednesday. What do you think of my home decor fashion sense? Please don't answer that. I honestly can't believe that I made enough money in such a short time and can officially visit the wizard to purchase that trophy of timepieces. Checking the perfection tracker for possibly the final time revealed that we did it! We are at 100% perfection! Yet, can it truly be called perfection until you make that grand trek out to the summit? It has been a long and winding road, but the only thing loftier than some of the goals we set for ourselves is the view from that most majestic of mountains. And as I stood there next to Haley, I was proud of all we had accomplished. And I want to thank all of you for coming along on this journey with me. I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye!